आवाज सर आ रही होगी? ठीक है. So I am here to discuss world history. Before I start world history, there are some things which sir asked me to take. ठीक है, there are some things which sir asked me to take world history. Before I start this, let me take a break. Not very comfortable with this, but still. Before I start, what I want to tell you in world history is that whenever students study world history or someone teach them world history or history for that matter, the biggest challenge or the biggest problem is that we are not very comfortable with the time we are dealing with. For example, if I tell you about the Surat split. सर ये बताइए पेन कौन सा चलाना है? अच्छा, एक तो माइक और दूसरा पेन, देखिए कौन सा चलाना है. कोई भी ठीक है. Sorry for that. So whenever we study world history or history for that matter, we feel, or I feel, that we are not very comfortable with it. For example, if we are reading Indian history, so there are some event happened in Surat 1907. 1907 mein something happened in Surat. When we discuss that, moderates, extremist, Dada Bhai Nauroji, how he came last year, we feel comfortable in that. Although we may not know many things, हम कुछ चीज ना जाने वो बात अलग है. But still thinking about that makes sense. If we talk about Battle of Plassey, in this also, although we may not be aware or we may not know all the maneuver ki Battle of Plassey, how it is fought, who fought it. But even then, you have some idea or your brain visualize something. But as I take picture to the French Revolution, जैसे ही फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन पे पिक्चर ले जाते हैं तो वो हमें फील होता है as if we are talking about some far away land. French society was divided into 3 estates: first estate, second estate, third estate. Third estate was too much oppressed and these people have done the revolution. ऐसा क्यों होता है? Is this true? So when you will put it to scrutiny, you will feel कि ऐसा नहीं है. जैसे if someone tells you Indian history, आपको बताना शुरू करे कि there were British, they started oppressing Indian people. Indian people suddenly rose in rebellion and India was given independence. इतना सिंपल था आपका revolution. You will find that there was landlords, you will find that there were princely states, you will find that there were multiple voices of this nation. There were even those who were not agreeing with it, जो इस पे agree नहीं कर रहे थे. So the problem with history, especially the history of world, that we are not comfortable with it. कम ज्यादा जानना तो छोड़ो. I am sure you do not know anything about Indian history also. आपको Indian history भी कुछ थोड़ी ना पता है. If I ask you to analyze the nature of Indian revolution, तो वही नहीं कर पाओगे, फ्रेंच क्या करोगे? So knowing or not knowing is something different. Feeling comfortable about thinking about it, that's what is the first qualification of studying any part of history for that matter. चाहे वो post independence हो, independence हो, or whatever. So before I start telling you question तो मैं बता दूंगा. Today I have 5 questions. So we will discuss 5 questions. You may feel that they are less, but they are not. I have set them chronologically. Chronology में उनको set किया है. So this chronological setting of questions will help us move in our history. This will help that how we will proceed, how we will understand it. But this is what my feeling was when yesterday I was thinking what 5 questions to put. The main issue which I want to discuss is that whenever we study this history, or this especially world history, वैसे तो Indian history, if you want to detach the personalities from it, आप पढ़ना चाहो Russian Revolution, and you are not ready to understand who was Kerensky, who was Lenin, who was Nicholas, है ना, Leon Trotsky, is a pro-Brzezinski, इन सब का नाम आपने नहीं सुना. If you don't know about them, it will be really hard for you to understand. It's like if you want to study Indian history and you don't know what's the politics or what's the view of Gandhi, Nehru, Jinnah, Patel, Mountbatten, ये सब आपको नहीं पता है, तो how on this earth are you going to understand Indian Revolution? फिर तो आप कुछ years याद कर लोगे, QIM, NCM, CDM जैसे याद कर लेते हो, रट लेते हैं. So therefore, before we proceed, I think we must have this agreement कि our knowledge of world history is not less. It's not less. Less तो सारी history की knowledge. It's uncomfortable also. ये uncomfortable भी है. So, without giving more knowledge or ज्ञान, let's start understanding what we are here for. So first is question number 1. पहला सवाल. The question number 1 is American. If you don't have the access, पता नहीं आप देख पा रहे हो या नहीं. Question number 1. American Revolution had many causes. देखो, why I have chosen this question? Because I feel that it encapsulates something. However, a very, very basic question, बहुत ही basic question. And this question need no analysis. It simply needs the knowledge. Question तो मैं थोड़ा tough choose कर रहा था कि American Revolution was not revolution in its conventional sense. या अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन या फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन में डिफरेंस या कोई भी और सवाल, इट इज born out of mercantilism or whatever. But still, I have chosen this question. पढ़ते ही आपको समझ में आ जाएगा. Only you need the knowledge of the notes. However, believe me, I will discuss. अभी इसको मैं discuss करूंगा. That's why I have chosen less question for this first class. Because we will deal in the history of 18th century and 19th, early part of the 19th century, which I am sure many students are not very comfortable with. World War I, World War II will come, so we will choose more questions. Because I know all of you via Hollywood movies or via your discussion or via something, you are aware of some person. Hitler का तो नाम गांव में लोगों ने सबने सुना है. So question number 1. American Revolution had many causes. American Revolution had many causes, which is social, economic and ideological. American Revolution has many causes, social, economic and ideological. डिस्कस करना है, इसमें कोई डिस्कशन ऐसा है ही नहीं. Also examine the role of important personalities who made it successful. ये वैसे ही है कि now instead of American Revolution write the National Revolution of India. तो social, economic and ideological causes. बिल्कुल आपका अकल चलने लगी. As I have changed American Revolution with Indian Revolution, your brain starts working. But it do not work when the American Revolution is written. वैसे तो अमेरिका में भी रेवोल्यूशन चल रहा है, जो बिडेन और जो डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प, है ना. तो American Revolution had many causes. So your question, first part of your question, focus on the causes of revolution. The revolution had many causes. Before understanding the isolated causes, let's have a understanding about the time in which this story is set in. ये स्टोरी एक टाइम में सेट है. लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड अबाउट दैट टाइम. तो इफ वी वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड, तो 17th और 18th सेंचुरी का डिस्कशन है. नाउ दिस वाज द हाई एज ऑफ mercantilism. अब if I discuss about mercantilism, तो many of you might have heard this term in various parts of your history. इतिहास में आपने बहुत बार you must have heard about mercantilism. There was a mercantile phase in Indian history. But I'm more than sure that many of you have just heard it only. इसको सिर्फ सुन रखा है. You cannot analyze or you cannot understand many things about it. Why I am so sure in this? आपको लगेगा अरे सर, how can you question our understanding? तो I can, because I have been with a lot of students. तो पहले तो mercantilism समझ ले. What is mercantilism? Now this is an economy, and these are two countries, country 1 and country 2. In the high age of mercantilism, ये वाला एग्जांपल छोड़ के पहले और बेसिक. If these are two countries, two economies, 1 and 2, one sells chair to it and another sells table, छोड़ देते हैं, let's take some other example, toys to it. Mercantilism will say, if we are economy number 1, this economy will say, or this economy will think, that I should end my import and I should increase the export. The first principle of mercantilism is increase exports, decrease imports. So what they need to stop the toy import, so we call it import substitution. Try making toys inside the country. ये खुद toy produce, country 1 will try to produce toys. So increase the exports, decrease the exports by import substitution. By import substitution or by barriers. Barrier may be price barrier like tax, countervailing duty, और वो भी जो भी आपने ड्यूटी सुनी है, or by non-price barrier, by simply banning. Today this is called the trade war. And as today we do not live in the age of mercantilism, this is considered bad. WTO was made against mercantilism. So mercantilism में you always want to increase your exports, you always want to decrease your imports. And what to do by that? Earn more gold and silver. Earn the bullion or money. This is what country do. ये mercantilism. Now if you want to put it in our history, so mercantilism is phased from 1765 to around 1813. These dates are not exact but representative. These are the years in which British, instead of pumping gold and silver from Europe, पहले वो gold और silver यूरोप से लाते थे. After Treaty of Allahabad, as they got the Diwani rights, they stopped bringing gold and silver from outer countries, from Europe, from their home country. They started taking gold and silver of Bengal and sending to different parts of India. हमारा सामान हमारे ही gold silver से खरीदते थे. और if they want to buy anything into China, they use Indian gold and silver. If they want to buy anything from East Indies, Indonesia, Malaysia, they send our gold and silver. So instead of losing gold and silver, Britain has started earning it. That's the only change. Till 1810s or 1819th century, They did not buy cotton from us and send the textile. ये नहीं हुआ था, उसको कैपिटलिस्ट फेज कहते हैं. मर्केंटाइल फेज, दे आर स्टिल बाइंग द टेक्सटाइल. आज भी हमारे कपड़े ही खरीदते हैं. However, instead of losing gold and silver, they are now earning it. So this movement decides by these exports and imports, change in this. So you will see, if you make the export of British in our history, Britain. So earlier, before 1765, they used to export gold and silver, bullion, हमारे यहां बेचते थे. They used to export us. After 1765, they started importing gold and silver. हमसे लेने लगे. This is the change in exports. Gold and silver, instead of flowing towards India, started flowing from India. That is mercantile phase. तो पहले तो आप mercantilism समझें. And we are in the high age of mercantilism. Once UPSC in GS has asked that how American Revolution is the result of mercantilist policies. So how can you expect to answer this question when you are not aware clearly about mercantilism? पहली चीज. If it is a third country, how mercantilism will be applied in the third country? So one will try to sell its product, or one will try to take products from this country and sell into different parts of Europe. ब्रिटेन चाहेगा वो इंडिया का सामान यूरोप में बेचे. फ्रांस वांट दैट इट शुड सेल इंडियन प्रोडक्ट्स इन यूरोप. इन मर्केंटाइल फेज, this import substitution, barriers, tariffs, non-tariffs, government has a great role to play. It could not be done without government. Government ही तो ban करेगी. So therefore, in this high age of mercantilism, government power, if government would not have intervened on the side of Britain, या चलो ब्रिटिश की बात मान लेते हैं, if East India Company would not have deployed soldiers and all, they could never have got this Treaty of Allahabad. न करवा, एक simple trading company could not do this Treaty of Allahabad and Battle of Plassey. So government intervention is needed in mercantilism. And when Britain in 17th and 18th century trying to suck the money out of America, trying to use America for its home country, as later they have used Bengal and India. अमेरिका में भी वो यही करना चाह रहे थे. They want to take gold and silver out of America, or they wanted to earn money via America. It needed government intervention, a heavy government machinery. And this is what Americans have not, or Americans stopped agreeing with. पहले, सबसे पहले बात ध्यान से समझ लें, that it is the mercantilism of Britain. And when today Trump has put tariff barriers on China, he is adopting the same 18th and 17th century policies of mercantilism. ठीक है? Without understanding it, you cannot understand the causes and the reason behind this. आगे आते हैं. Although I have a lot to say, but छोड़ते हैं अभी for time. Let's understand about society. I'll return to economy. Economy पे वापस आएंगे. This is how you study history. You don't study history point wise. इसका बड़ा सीधा सा आंसर है कि I tell you, सामने मेरे खुला भी है, आपको भी शायद अब तक मिल गया हो. Economic causes, navigation laws, ये इस तरह नहीं पढ़ते हैं history. That's why you will see कि you always find it difficult to understand it because you want to learn it. जैसे what are the roles of DC district collector पढ़ डाले आपने बचपन में. But before that you know who's DC. You have the feeling कि where he is posted. तो बाकी सब्जेक्ट्स में आपके पास थोड़ी फीलिंग रहती है. In polity we all have the feeling who's judge, what is judiciary, what is police, what is minister, what is legislature. In world history the problem is कोई आइडिया नहीं दूर दूर तक, सिंपली कहीं नाम सुन रखा है। दैट्स वाई अगेन आई एम हैमरिंग होम इन एवरी क्लास, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू डू दैट। लेट्स टॉक अबाउट सोसाइटी। कोई स्टूडेंट सामने बैठा नहीं तो समझ में भी नहीं आता है कि हाउ मच आई हैव टू पुश माई सेल्फ। स्टडी सोसाइटी, देखें, when you see this Britain and these colonies of America, and this is Atlantic Ocean in between में Atlantic Ocean, and these are the 13 colonies of America. Now when you will see, so the greatest claim of Britain, देखो generally we do not study about the revolution, but from 1688 till 19th century, Britain claims that they were undergoing a revolution. 1688 is technically called Glorious Revolution, और वो इसके पहले भी ले जाते हैं, some take it to 1640 from English Civil War. The claim of English is, the claim of English is that they are under continuous revolution. Continuous revolution. First they have set the parliament, then they have solved the great problem how monarchy should be transitioned to democracy. Question लिखें, write a question, not going to discuss that, but still write it. The British continuous revolution. The British continuous revolution laid the basis of present day democracy. Led the basis of present day democracy and made it compatible to monarchy. And made it compatible to the monarchy. Monarchy से उसको compatible भी बनाया. Believe me, the single greatest achievement of Britain. ये बहुत ही बड़ा achievement है ब्रिटेन का. Even your own prime ministerial or parliamentary system is kingship adjusted for democracy. हमारे प्रेसिडेंट को इतनी पावर है because he is treated as a king. इतने बड़े घर में वो क्यों रहता है राष्ट्रपति भवन में? Why there shall be a president? Because we follow British system, which cannot work without a monarch, जो monarch के बिना काम ही नहीं हो सकता है. And that's why the present day polity questions of prelims, because they are more based on, जो आप ये समझते हैं ना rule of law का क्या मतलब है, why constitution is. For this we need to understand British history. So without going into British history, this continuous revolution was going on in 18th century. And these British, they had the claim that they are far better than this continental Europe. Continental Europe से इनका political system बेहतर है. The rise of middle class after this glorious revolution got the type of life which they can boast about. Ab now these Americans also consider themselves British and boast about the liberties and the type of life it is available to them. हर बार ये कहना कि these are the American people who have the spirit of freedom, and it was the spirit of freedom, but it was the British spirit of freedom. ये कहना correct नहीं है कि they are the ones who thought that they are not British and therefore they called for their separate country. Their exact feeling was that they were British. इनकी फीलिंग ही थे ब्रिटिश है. जॉर्ज वॉशिंगटन इन हिज लेटर टू सम सूट मेकर, जो सूट पहनते हैं, उनको लिखता है जॉर्ज वॉशिंगटन इन ब्रिटेन, डोंट कंसिडर मी एन अमेरिकन दैट आई हैव नो आइडिया अबाउट द टेस्ट एंड द फैशंस ऑफ लंदन. आई नो एग्जैक्टली हाउ द लंदन फैशन स्ट्रीट वर्क्स, इसलिए ये सूट मुझे मत दो, इट्स नॉट वेरी वेल. So these people, they have the clear way. बस बात यह है कि are we on par? जैसे आप देखें, आप एक बच्चे को गोद ले लें, you adopt a child and you have your own real child, so your adopted son will always claim that he is your son. And one day a neighbor tells him that he is not your son. You are not his father. So he will say, okay, I may be a stepson, but he treat me well. So your neighbor will say, he don't treat you well. It's a test now, try doing it. Yesterday, your real son has broken a glass. आज जाके तुम घर पे glass तोड़ना. And your stepson comes to house, breaks the glass willfully. And you start beating him. आप उसकी पिटाई शुरू कर दें. That is the similar type of experience these American people have tasted. They always claimed that they are British. But when after 7 years war, they have asked British, are we equal? British said, yes, you are equal. They say, should we get the right to represent ourselves in parliament? क्या हमें ब्रिटिश पार्लियामेंट में अपने आप को रिप्रेजेंट करने का मौका मिलेगा? The answer was no. This precipitated a great crisis. तो ये बात आप ध्यान से, एक तो mercantilism, what I want to tell you, आंसर तो मैं पढ़ ही दूंगा, mercantilism. And second thing, you must understand that Britain has claimed equality. अच्छा, these people were also inferior. तो inferior भी थे ये. These were the people who in the search of who will go to Americas in this colonies. The one who do not have the fortune of Britain. जिसको ब्रिटेन में फॉर्च्यून नहीं मिला, that one will go to America. And when they reached America, they said themselves they have got the money. और उनको लगा कि money was the problem. लंदन में I was poor, न्यूयॉर्क I am rich. तो हो गया मैं ब्रिटिश. The only difference was money. Britain said it's not the only difference. यही सिर्फ difference नहीं. So it was inferior, और inferior नहीं कहेंगे. It was the poor who earned money but can't earn equality. क्वेश्चन में ये देना चाहता था. I wanted to give this question, but I thought कि आपके लिए थोड़ा ट्रिकी हो जाएगा. कि in Britain, a lot of people have earned money, or British new fortune got by the poor of or deprived or of Britain could not earn them the equality. Equality नहीं earn कर पाए. अब आप देखें हुआ क्या कि every colony has the system of government which Indian states presently follow. That elected assembly headed by a sent governor. Assembly elected, governor is sent. Now, what this governor has done, तो जैसा इंडियन स्टेट्स में होता है, this governor started imposing the will of Britain over the people. This elected assembly could not assert itself in American colonies as parliament was successful in asserting itself over king. Especially after this glorious revolution. Glorious revolution की हो सकता है आपको जानकारी थोड़ी कम हो. It was the king's James II who was expelled by the parliament. And instead his daughter and daughter-in-law was called. Our reason बड़ा पुराना है. Bloody Mary के time Protestants were persecuted and parliament was largely Protestant during 1688. तो parliament wanted कि there must be a Protestant king. King का religion Protestant होना चाहिए. Whereas James II was Catholic. And his daughter and son-in-law were Protestant. They belonged to Netherlands, Orange. So William of Orange and Mary, they were called and made king. And when they were made king with some qualification, with some conditions. Condition thi parliament will hold the regular sessions. A bank will be created. The liberties will be guaranteed. So this was the success of glorious revolution in Britain, which was not visible in America in 1750s, 60s, especially after 7 years war. (1756 to 63). तो ये समझ लें Third thing what you should understand, that what is the view of Britain in this? देखो सब कोई लॉजिकल होता है, एवरी साइड इज लॉजिकल, देयर इज नो इलॉजिकल साइड. कोई सास बहू की मूवी नहीं है वो, कहानी घर घर की. इट्स एवरी साइड हैज अ लॉजिक. नाउ व्हाट इज द लॉजिक ऑफ ब्रिटेन? ब्रिटेन सेज द taxes in Britain are higher and the taxes in America are lower. ब्रिटेन का कहना था ब्रिटेन में टैक्स हायर है, अमेरिकन टैक्सेस आर लोअर. ऑल्सो देयर वॉज द प्रेजेंस ऑफ फ्रांस इन द कॉन्टिनेंट, अमेरिकन कॉन्टिनेंट में. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस ईस्टर्न मार्जिन ऑफ 13 colonies, France was still visible and greatly visible in Americas. Spain, the junior ally after the takeover of Bourbon dynasty in 1713. Spain, it also became Bourbon in last 70 years. It's also a junior ally of France. ये भी present है. Then you will see that there are various Indian tribes. नाम सुना होगा, Mohawks, चुरस्की, चिकोरी, सब इंडियन ट्राइब्स हैं. These tribes are also present. And these tribes always hated the British West movement. आपने देखा होगा 19th century में these Americans they have moved to West. वो जो हॉर्स पे बैठते हैं और वो दो बंदूकें ऐसे रखते हैं, then they open the bar. वहां सब कोई पी रहा होता है, येलोइश सब वो डेजर्ट होता है ना. वेस्टर्न मूवीज, जो भी उस हीरो का नाम था, फॉरगॉटन द नेम, गुड बैड एंड द अगली टाइप्स. सो दीज पीपल ऑलवेज वांटेड टू मूव वेस्ट एंड दीज ट्राइब्स टेक द हेल्प ऑफ फ्रांस, स्पेन, एंड फ्रांस एंड स्पेन दे ऑल्सो हेटेड दिस वेस्टवर्ड मूवमेंट. देखो, आई होप कि आपने कुछ थोड़ा अमेरिकन रेवोल्यूशन तो पढ़ा ही होगा. जनरली आई हैव सीन इन क्लास, तो मैं देख के समझ जाता हूं. देन आई टेक माई स्टोरी टू मोर बेसिक. आई एम नॉट गोइंग मोर बेसिक देन दिस. So Americans always wanted to move west and these tribes hate them. Such movement towards west in 1765, sorry 1756, 65 तो हमारी डेट है, 56, started a war where England have fought against France एंड द न्यू पावर. जो इंग्लिश किंग थे फॉर लास्ट 50 ईयर 1713 से, दे वर एग्जैक्टली द जर्मन डायनेस्टी ऑफ हैनोवर. सो दे गॉट द हेल्प ऑफ अ फेलो जर्मन किंग फ्रेडरिक विलियम. सारे तो फ्रेडरिक विलियम ही होते हैं, प्रशा. तो इंग्लैंड साइडेड विद द कॉन्टिनेंटल न्यू अपस्टार्ट ऑफ प्रशा, एंड प्रशा हैज प्रॉमिस्ड टू फाइट the great Habsburg Austrian Empire, Austria, plus Russia. Russia was ruled by the daughter of Peter the Great, Elizabeth of Russia. So this is called the 7 Years' War, where England exactly fought against France in the colonies. Prussia in the continental Europe has fought Austria and Russia. ठीक है. France was ruled by Louis XV, grandfather of 16th. England was ruled by George II, later his grandson George III. Prussia was ruled by Frederick William. Austria was ruled by, as you all know, Maria Theresa. She was coronated in Austrian War of Succession. तो सुना ही होगा आपने, Carnatic Wars. And Russia was ruled by daughter of Peter, Elizabeth. ये जान लेने से you become more confident. And in your free time, I wish कि आप विकिपीडिया में पेज खोल के इनके बारे में थोड़ा बहुत पढ़ लें. This only can make you comfortable in world history. Following are the causes and following are the consequences. आप पढ़ोगे तो in your entire lifetime you will never be comfortable with it. आप बस causes और consequences में ही फंसे रहोगे. So now as this war started, it continued for 7 years. Called truly the first world war of this world because it was fought in the 5 continents. In India, Battle of Plassey was the part of 7 years war. आप बैटल ऑफ प्लासी को देखेंगे तो बैटल्स वॉर के बीच में लड़े जाते हैं. दे आर फॉट इन द मिडस्ट ऑफ वॉर. बैटल ऑफ प्लासी इज अ बैटल ऑफ 7 years war. You must be aware about Chandar Nagor, Qasim Bajar, the French colonies which were attacked first by British. Therefore, that young grandson of Ali Vardi Khan, Sirajud-Dowla, he took actions. तो वो भी 7 years war का हिस्सा है. Battle of Vandivash 1760, part of 7 years war. This in India is known as Third Carnatic War. Buxar इसका part नहीं है. So now you understand, it was fought in 5 continents. It has great repercussions. It sent the repercussion all around the world. It has launched Russia, the great power of Europe. It has launched British as the sole or greatest power of this globe. So I don't know 7 years war can be asked in UPSC or not. क्योंकि specifically तो शायद नहीं लिखा है, mid 18th century है. But 7 years war is true first world war of this world. लिख लो ये भी question. Write this as a question. 7 years war was a true first world war. ये पहला फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर है और फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर. 0th वर्ल्ड वॉर मत लिखना. मैनी स्टूडेंट आस्क कि सर 0 लिख ले. इट्स ट्रूली द फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर. इट हैज इवन लॉन्च द ब्रिटिश रूल ऑफ इंडिया. हम भी प्लासी पे रोते हैं, भी हमारा ब्रिटिश रूल शुरू हो गया. सो दैट इज ऑल्सो पार्ट ऑफ 7 years. नाउ व्हाट इज द, और इट हैज इवन लॉन्च द फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन. इट हैज इवन लॉन्च द सब कुछ इसी. 7 years war has a great repercussion on this world. I hope there will come a day when we will discuss more. अभी तो नहीं हो सकता. After 7 years war, England prevailed, defeated France. अच्छा, Russia in 1761 quit itself. Elizabeth died. His son Peter the Third came. And Peter the Third was the fan. He was a German prince who was fan of Frederick William of Prussia. So Frederick William हार गए. He has lost. But Russia has ended the war and returned Frederick William all his territory. This is known as the miracle of the House of Brandenburg. At the fag end of World War II, Franklin Roosevelt also died. So Hitler has took it as his own miracle of the हाउस ऑफ ब्रेंडनबर्ग. गबल्स ने उसको समझाया कि अभी वर्ल्ड वॉर खत्म होने वाला है. दिस इज अ न्यू मिरेकल. फालतू कहानी थी. 1763. इन दिस ब्रिटेन हैज आस्क्ड अमेरिका दैट यू विल हैव टू पे फॉर योर ओन सेफ्टी. आपको अपनी सेफ्टी के लिए खुद पे करना पड़ेगा. योर टैक्सेस आर ऑलरेडी लो and we cannot save you every time. Pay for your own safety. Now taxes are raised. These rise in taxes. So Britain has a very common sense view to it. There are 2 great reasons. First, taxes are already low. Second, colonies should pay for their own safety. Who will pay for the safety of American colonies? कमा आप रहे हो, you are earning, everything you are doing. And you want British citizens to foot the bill for that. हम तो आइलैंड में रह रहे, हमें क्या दिक्कत है? हमारे बगल में अमेरिकन ट्राइब है. neither we have American tribes nor we have French or Spain looming over us. और they are looming तो we have seen between sea है, तो हम कुछ हमें दिक्कत ही नहीं. Now when tax are raised, they have sent 2 issues in America. 2 issues in America. जैसे ही टैक्स बढ़े, there are 2 issues in America. फर्स्ट, तो दे हेटेड द राइजिंग टैक्स. जो भी आप 1760s की क्रोनोलॉजी पढ़ते हैं, मोलेसेस एक्ट, स्टैम्प एक्ट, शुगर एक्ट, ऑल दीज आर राइजिंग टैक्सेस. टैक्स बढ़ जाते थे. सेकेंड इज व्हाट अमेरिकंस हैव सेड. अब देखो, राइजिंग टैक्स तो एवरीवन हेट्स, कुछ ना कुछ तो कहेंगे. अमेरिकंस स्टार्टेड सेइंग कि you don't impose this tax on us. We should impose our own tax. We can tax ourselves. You cannot. We means our representatives. So since Magna Carta, there is a famous saying, no taxation without consultation. It is before the days of democracy when feudal lords, Magna Carta हुई, Convention of Oxford 1258, तो उसमें कहा गया whenever king have to tax, so he will have to call his major landlords. But in the age of democracy where people elect their representative, instead of landlord these representative go, तो ये हो गया no taxation without representation. And this no taxation without representation was an issue. Next चीज देखें. I think I am discussing economic as well as social both. आपको इसमें से खुद पिक करना है, ये मत डोंट वेट फॉर मी दैट अलग से मैं पहले इकोनॉमिक बताऊंगा फिर सोशल बताऊंगा. इन दिस स्टोरी और ऑफिशियल आंसर तो आई थिंक यू हैव, ऑफिशियल आंसर तो आपके पास है ही, तो रीड दैट ऑफिशियल आंसर. देन everywhere these 13 colonies has no unity. These are the 13 various countries. Are these 13 countries forming a confederation, or a single country was made with 13 states? What's your answer? And whatever answer you give is a wrong answer. The reason is this answer will be decided in American Civil War. American Civil War was not exactly for slavery. वो तो अब्राहम लिंकन हैज मेड इट अ क्वेश्चन ऑफ स्लेवरी. स्लेवरी का क्वेश्चन नहीं था, क्वेश्चन ये था कि आर वी स्टेट्स कमिंग टुगेदर टू फॉर्म अ कन्फेडरेशन, और यूएस इज अ कंट्री विद स्टेट्स एज डिस्ट्रक्टेबल पार्ट ऑफ इट, जैसे इंडिया में. तो ये सवाल ओपन एंडेड रहा. तो इसलिए जब सवाल 1816 में ओपन एंडेड था, तो 1716 में तो देयर वाज नो चांस दैट. दीज आर द 13 कंट्रीज हैव देयर डिफरेंट रिलेशंस विद ब्रिटेन. हाउएवर व्हेन दीज इश्यूज स्टार्टेड, दीज आर द 3 इश्यूज जो हमने लिखे हैं कॉमन फॉर ऑल द 13 कॉलोनीज, एंड देयरफॉर दिस हैज ब्रॉट द कॉलोनीज टुगेदर. इंस्टेड ऑफ siblings fighting, they became the brothers fighting together. Sibling rivalry से ये band of brother में बदल गए. So now the fourth issue was, जो चौथा issue रहा, because I don't have students in front of me and that's a challenge. So I hope you all are गेटिंग इट. आप सबको ये समझ में आ रहा होगा, ठीक है. फोर्थ इज, जब ये हो चुका है एंड दे आर स्टिल आस्किंग फॉर द टैक्सेस. सो दीज कॉलोनीज, देयर अपीयर्ड 2 स्ट्रीम. देखो एवरी रेवोल्यूशन हैज 2 स्ट्रीम्स. हर रेवोल्यूशन में 2 लेयर होती हैं, एटलीस्ट 2 लेयर्स. वन इज द टॉप लेयर ऑफ रेवोल्यूशन, जो रेवोल्यूशन के टॉप पे होती है. In the case of India, Gandhi, Nehru, Patel, or before that, Dada Bhai Nauroji, Gopal Krishna Gokhale. So top layer is of generally politicians who are in discussions with the government. जो government के साथ discussions में रहते हैं. Government means the ruling government against whom they are revolting. They sit with them, they discuss with them. They are generally the politicians. They meet together. And then there is a lower layer. In American Revolution, it is called the Continental Congress, top layer. In French Revolution, the top layer is called National Convention or National Assembly. In Russian Revolution, they will be the provisional government. In Indian Revolution, they are the nationalist leaders. हर रेवोल्यूशन में होते हैं. Then there comes the mass of angry people. गुस्सैल युवाओं का एक झुंड होता है, which burns the cities, which burn the police stations. चौरी चौरा में जिन्होंने जला दी, आग लगा दी. Which bomb the places, भगत सिंह. Which assassinates the people, Khudiram Bose. Which do a lot of ground activity. These are called the ground vigilante. ये ग्राउंड पे काम करने वाले विजिलेंटी होते हैं. जैसे टुडे वी हियर, भगवान न करे ऐसा हो कि सम फॉरेन गवर्नमेंट रूल्स ओवर इंडिया, तो मोदी, अमित शाह, राहुल गांधी, शशि थरूर, दे ऑल विल डिस्कस कि ऐसा कर लें आप, ऐसा, हमें इतनी पावर दें. बट वी, व्हाट वी विल डू, हमें तो जो मिलेगा उसको पीटेंगे पकड़ के. सो देयरफॉर दीज ग्राउंड विजिलेंटी, in American Revolution, the top strata was called the Continental Congress, which met twice, whereas the ground vigilante were called the Sons of Liberty. Later, these Sons of Liberty were converted into small militia of George Washington. After the help of France, it became the American Army. तो ये सन्स ऑफ लिबर्टी 1760 से शुरू हुए. इन 1775 बैटल ऑफ लेक्सिंगटन एंड कंकॉर्ड दे वर क्रिएटेड इनटू अ ऑर्गेनाइज्ड मिलिशिया. आफ्टर द हेल्प ऑफ फ्रांस इन 1778 दे वर नाउ ट्रूली अमेरिकन आर्मी. तो 1775 से इनको आर्मी कहा जाने लगा, बट दे आर ट्रूली एन आर्मी. सो दीज आर सन्स ऑफ लिबर्टी. नाउ इट्स द स्पिरिट ऑफ फ्रीडम. इट्स द स्पिरिट. जैसे आप देखेंगे, अ विलेजर विल एक्सेप्ट वॉट एवर अ पुलिसमैन इज सेइंग, बट अ सिटी बॉय विल नॉट एक्सेप्ट दैट. सो दीज आर द सन्स ऑफ लिबर्टी हु हैव टेकन दिस, हु हैव अंडरस्टूड दिस, एंड देयर स्पिरिट ऑफ फ्रीडम हैज imposed it. This is the son of liberty who went to Boston Harbor in 1773. एक रेगुलेटिंग एक्ट आया था, इफ यू रिमेंबर, 1773 रेगुलेटिंग एक्ट टू इंप्रूव द फाइनेंसेस ऑफ ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी. तो इंडिया को हायरार्की में बनाया गया, सुप्रीम कोर्ट एंड ऑल दैट. दैट रेगुलेटिंग एक्ट ऑल्सो इंपोज्ड द टी मोनोपोली ऑन अमेरिकन शोर्स, कि ओनली ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी विल सेल द टी. तो ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी को लगा मोनोपोली हो गई है, तो इंडिया चाइना से बहुत सारी टी, लॉट ऑफ टी फ्रॉम चाइना. इंडिया में तब टी नहीं होती थी. फ्रॉम चाइना दे हैव ब्रॉट अ लॉट ऑफ टी टू सेल टू अमेरिका. एंड दीज सन्स ऑफ लिबर्टी वेंट एंड दे हैव टेकन द चेस्ट ऑफ टी, और उनको समुद्र में फेंक के चाय बना दी. नाउ this was done by Sons of Liberty. Many of you will feel that my discussion is not very streamlined. The reason is I feel that you know at least something about it. आप लोगों को कुछ तो इसका पता होना चाहिए और होगा. So this is the fourth reason, Continental Congress and Sons of Liberty. So now I guess you can understand what are the social causes written. अच्छा, the population of America was 7 million, 70 lakh. And majority of white, 70% of white men were landholders. They were the owner of the land. And they used to own that land. That's why when you will see that people is rich, आप देखेंगे ऑडी में कोई लड़का जा रहा है, वो पुलिस से जल्दी नहीं रुकता है. Police cannot stop them. And if police will stop them, and no matter he do not have any license, any RC, he will still argue. Because he is tasting that freedom. एक बार आप में कॉन्फिडेंस आ जाए, मनी आ जाए, तो you are not going to be bulldozed by such governments. So these sons of liberty, although they are ground vigilante, they are not the poor people. And they started this boycott movement. They started this non-importation. No one will import. All the ports, जाते थे पोर्ट में, जो भी any man who's, any shopkeeper who's seen selling British good, they used to blacken the face. Any tax collector who used to collect molasses tax, sugar tax, they used to burn the effigy. वो आता था उसके ऑफिस में, उसी की effigy जलाते थे कि try taking the tax. So that's the sort of liberty they have tasted for last 6 generations. That has helped them to organize this movement. So social, economic and ideological. तो ideology was, जैसे आप देखें in tax, तो many of the time these, अच्छा आपसे कई बार ये पूछेंगी how Britain failed in America. तो the reason is British domestic politics, Whig and Tory politics. Tory party, which is today's conservative, wanted to teach a befitting lesson to American colonies. Whig party present day Labour, they wanted to reconcile the Americans. ये वैसे ही है, God forbids tomorrow Congress comes to power and ask that Kashmiris are mistreated. Let's provide them their right. इनको इनका हक देते हैं. So this anger which Kashmiri people have today, for last 1 year they are logged. Kashmiri politicians में तो है ही anger, लोगों में हो या ना हो, I am no one to say. But Kashmiri politicians have these anger. महबूबा मुफ्ती, उमर अब्दुल्ला. अब आज कांग्रेस पार्टी आ जाए and start discussing them, तो these people पहले तो कहेंगे हमारे से लॉकडाउन हटवा दो. कांग्रेस कहेगी ठीक है भाई, सॉरी फॉर लॉकडाउन, हटा दिया लॉकडाउन. Then they will say give us freedom of speech, हमारे यहां सब रेडियो स्टेशन खुलवा दो. कांग्रेस कहेगी ठीक है, गिवन. फिर करेंगे वो नेगोशिएट. Then they are not going to negotiate. Then Kashmir will move. So there are two parties managing this American affairs and 7 years long. Or more than 7, it's around 20 years long. 63 में बवाल शुरू हुआ था, 83 America got independence. So this 20 years long crisis was managed by parties one by one. And it was William Pitt the Younger, when he came to it was lost. तो आते ही उसने फिर अपना Pitt's India Act दिया. 1 year before Lord North, he wanted to give the act, तो वो North India Act होता. But now William Pitt the Younger, his father has fought 7 years war, Prime Minister. So William Pitt आया, and so therefore these parties keep on changing. And as they keep on changing their pressure group, so that's why you will see कि a power which has defeated the entire India was unable to defeat American 13 colonies, because according to Whig, these are the British people and deserve the Americans are the British people. So this was also the matter of ideology, that were they British, so according to Whig they are British, they deserve the better treatment. According to Tory, they are only British if they consider themselves as British. So now in 1767 there was a declaratory act that we are taking back the taxes. हम tax वापस ले लेते हैं. However, we declare that Parliament of Britain is sovereign in American colonies and no representation will be granted. कोई representation नहीं मिलेगा. We are the sovereign. Whatever we will impose, you will have to accept. Which has made this revolution truly ideological. वहां से revolution ideological हुआ. बात टैक्स की नहीं है, बात की बात है. It's not simply about taxation, it's about do we have the power to impose taxes on ourselves. Therefore, it was made ideological. Answer आप पढ़ेंगे तो आपको समझ में आ जाएगा. Now let's talk about some personalities. So there are a lot of personalities. John Locke, although he's an old man, मतलब he is not present in American Revolution, but he's the one who gave this concept of. एक second. John Locke, who gave the concept of liberalism. Liberalism. Montesquieu, who gave the concept of separation of power. The entire Enlightenment, the phase of Enlightenment. I am not taking it back to Dante. Dante की Divine Comedy सुना होगा आपने. But Enlightenment, who says that one person should not, world is ruled by natural laws, monarchy should also. So Enlightenment has questioned the divine rights. And then the Americans themselves, brothers Samuel Adams and John Adams, they are the one who organized Continental Congress, the politician group who used to send petitions to British government. Adams brother, Samuel Adams, John Adams. John Adams was second president of United States. Then his son, John Quincy Adams, fifth president of US. The fifth president, your father, who was second president, and his elder brother Samuel Adams. They are two lawyers. Then the one who has got electricity, जो पतंग उड़ाने में, Benjamin Franklin. अरे यार, Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin, the one who was sent to France to secure the French support. He went to Paris, stayed there, and secured the support of Louis XVI, the grave mistake of Louis's life that he has supported. So Benjamin Franklin is the one who gave, and he's the elder statesman. Then an inferior colonel, due to whom America or Britain has to enter 7 years war, which in America is called the War of American Indian War. The Colonel George Washington, who was not fit for service, उसकी ARC में लिखा हुआ है, George Washington, the true hero of revolution. He has not only fought the Revolutionary War, he prevailed in that. He had all the chances to convert America into monarchy whenever he wanted. 1783 के बाद कई बार ये हुआ कि he can convert that into monarchy. When it was asked what we should call you in the Continental Congress, Your Highness, Your Majesty, he said, simply Mr. President will work. He is the first one who gave up the power willfully after 2 terms. He gave up the power. 1797, he gave up the power. And that is considered the greatest of his virtue. उसने खुद power दे दी. Otherwise, he was very powerful. So, George Washington, and what he gave the victory. Then Thomas Jefferson, the one who framed the Declaration of Independence, where he brought all the previous constitutions, Hammurabi ka code, Roman code, Salic law, which is still in the work in European countries. So he brought all these and compiled a great document called the Declaration of Independence. जहाँ वो कहता है freedom, liberty and famously you must have heard that it was his word which were pursuit of happiness. That we should make a country where man should pursue that. He also wanted to end the slavery. But कहा गया कि भाई common sense should also prevail. And it's not that these rich landlord, white landlord, they should turn against this declaration. So therefore, Thomas Jefferson, who has gave this Declaration of Independence, later the 3rd president, and Thomas Paine, who wrote Common Sense, pamphlet, which although written late 1770s में लिखा गया, but it says कि it's in common sense to revolt against it. अरे बहुत हो गया यार, क्वेश्चन नंबर 1 ही चल रहा है अभी. So this is American Revolution. I hope all those who know about it will have better understanding, and those who don't know anything first have some knowledge, थोड़ा सा कहीं पढ़ लें, and then see this discussion. Was French Revolution a success or failure? Favorite topic? French Revolution. French Revolution था क्या? इसे I have seen कि many time ना पाकिस्तान में भी पार्लियामेंट में कहा गया French Revolution 1789 to 99. तो फवाद खान जो उनके मिनिस्टर हैं, लेट फैट गए, तो he talked about French Revolution 1789 to 99. So my question to Fawad Khan was कि how do you know the end date of French Revolution? Many places people say 1789 to 99. It's still in debate. French Revolution. A revolution in 1787. क्या तो समझाऊं मैं? छोड़े, I'm not going to tell the basics. 1789. It takes a lot of time. 1789. There was the elections in preceding years. In the history of France, the great tradition is कि whenever देखो होता है, there are grades कि whenever there is some small issue, king will talk to his ministers. King अपने minister से बात करेगा, बात खत्म हो जाएगी. ठीक है. Jacques Necker, Turgot, Brienne, these were the finance ministers of France in preceding decade, who wanted to solve the problem of France, economic problem of France. So French Revolution started with the economic troubles. France took part in 7 Years' War. To avenge that, France took part itself in American War of Revolution. France was generally an exhausted economy. उस जमाने में, in the high age of mercantilism, every country employed great armies more than their resources. तो एक बड़ी famous story है. Once Bismarck, 80 years after this, once Bismarck was in France, जब वो फ्रांस गए, when he conquered France in 1871. फ्रांस ने, sorry, जर्मनी ने, Prussia has conquered France in 1871, which you will see in next class. तो Bismarck has seen a French chateau. Chateau होता है rural palace. And just looking at the chateau, Bismarck has said, this chateau must belong to Rothschild. एक family है Rothschild. Some of you must have heard a lot of conspiracy theories about them. इतने पैसे वाले होते हैं तो. Bismarck said कि this chateau must belong to a Rothschild. तो जो French guide था, he said, yes sir, how you know? He said a monarch cannot afford it. King ये सब afford कर ही नहीं सकते. Now this gives you the sense of the type of governments we had in 18th and especially till the end of 19th century. The governments which pump all their money in their army, which pump all their money in their bureaucracy, which was so inefficient, जो इतनी inefficient होती थी, even our present day PSUs. In 21st century, their inefficiency is beyond imagination. सोचो 19th century की PSU की क्या efficiency होती रही होगी. So these inefficient machinery, inefficient taxation, that has put France always on an economic crisis. एक economic crisis में हमेशा इसको रखते थे. And France also took part in other wars. दूसरे के पंचायतों में involvement भी है. So due to all these factors, from 17 in 7, हाँ, तो first crisis is solved by ministry. पहला तो crisis आएगा तो ministry से पूछ के solve हो जाएगा. Now even if ministry could not solve the crisis, second, a commission will be called. जैसे हम commission बुलाते हैं ना, सरकारिया commission, वर्मा commission, तो a commission will be called of eminent personalities, and they will be asked कि what is the solution, जिसको कहते हैं assembly of notables. तो 1787 assembly of notables बुलाई गई. एक चीज समझ ले, which will make French Revolution clear to you, कि France was divided into small region. Estates कह लें, region कह लें, province कह लें. Every province have their own small assembly, judicial assembly of feudal lords, of nobles and clergy, which is called parlements. Parlement or parlement. Whenever king will pass the decree, it will have to be ratified by this parlement to be applied in this region. It's like a central law passed by prime minister. At every district or at every village, Gram Pradhan will have to ratify it. ठीक है ना? Every province had or every region had the parlement. As king will pass a law or will pass a decree, it will have to be ratified by parlement, which is dominated by nobles and clergy. अब इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस आया, उसका सॉल्यूशन देना था कि these nobility and clergy should be taxed. नेकर ने भी कहा, टूर्गो ने भी कहा, ब्रियन ने भी कहा. Brienne was the last one. All of these have said, they are finance minister, कि tax the nobility and clergy, that's the only solution you have. As king want to tax the clergy, these parliament stop it. Parliament उसको stop कर देती कि नहीं, you cannot impose the taxation. Then 1787, in 87, assembly of notables, जिसको commission होती है, that was called. In France, when everything fails and a great discussion has to take place, kings of the older time, Valois dynasty, Capetian dynasty, these they used to call estates general. A States General means it's like the tribal thing. King with nobles, with some clergy and local people will settle an issue. ये होता है था because king thinks that people will always support the king. आप ही देख लें, you have more chances to get oppressed by a हवलदार, less chances to get oppressed by DG of police. तो DG of police तो generally law and order देना चाहता है. He always want to provide you law and order. It's only the local हवलदार्स and darogas who stop it. So therefore, a state DG आएगा आपके यहाँ, दरोगा को बुलाएगा, आपको बुलाएगा, पूछेगा क्या बात है, you will solve and DG will solve then and there. This system was a States General. But for last 200 years, especially after the rise of Louis XIV and then Louis XV, for last 200 years, 175 years, a States General was not needed. Even in French history, it was called only 5 times. 5 ही बारें बुलानी पड़ी. It is a very fundamental thing. Louis XVI was very sure that when these people will come, they will side with king. Cutting long story short, 1789 a States General was called, but Louis XVI was a simple, gullible man. He was not the type of man which are generally described in our books and answers. ये बड़ी पुरानी हिस्ट्री आप पढ़ते हैं, 100 साल पुरानी, कि लुई 16 बड़ा ही ऑपरेसिव था, ये था, वो था. ऑल दिस इज रिजेक्टेड नाउ. अब सब ये रिजेक्ट हो चुका है. इवन इन हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल यूपीएससी आस्क अस दैट न्यू हिस्टोरियोग्राफी. आपसे भी अगर पूछेंगे तो नहीं ही पूछेंगे. नो वन वांट टू आस्क यू दी दैट मार्क्सिस्ट ओल्ड हिस्ट्री की इट वाज वेरी ऑपरेसिव और फिर थर्ड एस्टेट्स रोज इन रेबेलियन. Now the problem which appeared in the States General is कि if you are calling some people, अगर आप election करवा रहे हैं, if you are asking hundreds of people, you have called them कि what's your issue, और आप उनका issue ना सुने, it's like trade union, you called all the workers कि tell your issues and you do not listen their issues. वो issue बताने लगे, आपने कहा छोड़ो हटाओ, I won't listen, now go back, तो फिर आपका पिटे बिना आना मुश्किल है. Likewise, 1789 when the States General was called, जब States General बुलाई गई, these nobles and clergy, they have persuaded Louis कि these people they came, आपने तो इनको बुलाया है टैक्स डिस्कस करने के लिए. You call them to discuss the tax, but they are not here to discuss the tax only. अब now they will discuss about constitutional reform, they will discuss about local reforms, they will discuss about communal reforms, they will discuss about a lot of things. तो फालतू में एक छोटी सी चीज के लिए, for a very small thing like taxation, you have called these people by election. 1 साल से इलेक्शन चल रहे हैं. काहे means CAHIRS, काहे means political pamphlet, जो वो manifesto. You read काहे of any of the member, एक किसी भी थर्ड स्टेट्स के मेंबर का काहे पढ़ लें, तो you will find taxation is nowhere to be found. पूरी उनकी लिस्ट तो कुछ और ही है. So therefore unnecessarily you have called these people. फिर एक और इशू आ गया था वोटिंग का, कि although third estate is very small, third estate is very large, but they will vote as one. Nobility will vote as one, clergy will vote as one. तो 2 versus 1 है. तो ये वोटिंग का भी डिस्कशन चल रहा था. I want you to write a statement. ये लफाए का स्टेटमेंट है, LAFAYETTE, लफाए. लफाए has said, what is third estate? I think you all know what is third estate. आप सबको आइडिया है थर्ड estate क्या है. What is third estate? Everything. What others consider it? Nothing. What it wants to be? Something. लिख लो स्टेटमेंट. What the third estate is everything. पूरा फ्रांस ये 97% ऑफ द फ्रांस. What others consider it nothing. हमारी कोई इज्जत ही नहीं. What it wants to become. हम बनना कहते हैं something. कुछ कोई सुने तो हमें. This is the question which I wanted to give you. मैं चाहता था आपको ये सवाल दूं, but then I thought it will be not justice on my part to ask you this. Because I understand वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री में सबके हाल बुरे ही रहते हैं. इन मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री तो वी विल हैव इंटरेस्टिंग डिस्कशंस. नाउ किंग हैज क्लोज्ड द असेंबली. दे वेंट टू टेनिस कोर्ट, टुक द ओथ. ऊपर पॉलिटिशियंस ये कर रहे थे. ग्राउंड वर्कर्स, दैट रेवोल्यूशनरी गार्ड विच वर डेवलपिंग, जो लोग थे, जनता जिसमें क्रोध था, बिकॉज दे ऑल न्यू कि इलेक्शंस हो गए हैं, सम रिफॉर्म्स विल टेक प्लेस. रिफॉर्म्स तो नहीं हुए, इंस्टेड दे हैव फाउंड द assembly closed. So people, they had the anger. They have stormed the local armory, Bastille, जहां पे 7-8 prisoner भी थे, only 7-8 prisoners जिनको छुड़ा दिया गया. All the armory was raided. And there appeared the two streams of revolution. One is on top of politicians, National Assembly, and last is the ground vigilantes, Revolutionary Guard. They are also called sans-culottes. जैसे आप देखेंगे, आई एम नॉट वन टू पास द जजमेंट. कोई ये ट्विटर पे क्लिप मत डाल देना मेरी. टुडे यू विल सी कि बीजेपी दे वांट टू डू अ सोशल रेवोल्यूशन एंड आई थिंक दे हैव मैनिफेस्टो तो यही है. सो दे आर द वन हु डू ऑन अ पॉलिटिशियन ऑन टॉप एंड देन देयर इज बजरंग दल, आरएसएस, वीएचपी विच डू और इंपोज इट ऑन ग्राउंड, जो ग्राउंड पे उस एजेंडा को फुलफिल करता है. काउ प्रोटेक्शन लॉज, दे विल बी मेड व्हेन दे विल बी मेड. जब तक वो पॉलिटिशियंस बनाएंगे तब बनाएंगे. टिल देन ऑन ग्राउंड द वर्क्स विल डन. कोई भी कार बीफ ले जाते हुए, कोई भी काउ बीफ, एनीवन विल बी कॉट, तो उसको पकड़ के मारेंगे. यू नो व्हाट दैट टर्म इज, आई डोंट वांट टू यूज दैट. सो लाइकवाइज देयर वाज विजिलेंटीज ऑन ग्राउंड एंड पॉलिटिशियंस ऑन टॉप, एंड दिस कंटिन्यूड. जो मुझे बस बताना है, देयर आर 3 कॉन्स्टिट्यूशंस विच वर मेड. 3 बार तो एक कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बना. 1791 द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन विद मोनार्की एज हेड. देन किंग ट्राइड टू फ्ली, caught at Varane, brought back, executed. He was not executed as he was fleeing. He was executed because his, जो उनका वो क्या कहते हैं, wife's nephew, son, वो ब्रदर इन लॉ का लड़का, Leopold, he has declared declaration of Pillnitz. In 1792 there was a declaration called Declaration of Pillnitz, which says anyone who will do any harm to my uncle Louis the 16th and my aunt Mary Antoinette, ये Austrian wife थी इनकी. Mary Antoinette was the daughter of Maria Theresa. Anyone is doing any harm to my uncle and aunt will be punished. So these revolutionary thought कि अब king is alive, तो Prussia and Austria will come together and will punish us. And France started getting losses. Austria and Prussia started moving inside France. तो ये हुआ कि if they will be murdered, whom Leopold will come to rescue? Leopold बचाने भी किसको आएगा? And they may return. That's why the king was executed. And after execution of king, the new constitution writing started. 1793. The Republican Constitution with unicameral. And this constitution has a cabinet or council of or members, जिसको कहते हैं ministers, who hold the executive. Executive was in the hands of Committee of Public Safety. All you know the head of it, Maximilian Robespierre, a lawyer who started his career, and his one of the first campaigns was to end the capital punishment. How ironic this word is. Maximilian Robespierre ने अपना career शुरू किया था as a lawyer to end capital punishment, and today he is at the head of Committee of Public Safety and head of Committee of Public Safety, and he is the one. And there is a revolutionary tribunal, एक revolutionary tribunal भी हुआ. अब आपने सुना होगा, कई बार कहा जाता है, before fighting the enemy out of the border, we shall fight the enemy within. गद्दारों से बचना ज्यादा बड़ी चीज है, पाकिस्तान चीन को तो हम निपट ही. Likewise. तो this revolutionary tribal and committee of public safety thought कि ऑस्ट्रिया से फर्स्ट कोalition से लड़ना, ऑस्ट्रिया, प्रशा, ब्रिटेन, इसे लड़ना तो ठीक बात है. फर्स्ट रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी इज टू फाइंड द एनिमीज ऑफ रेवोल्यूशन, दोज हु आर अगेंस्ट द रेवोल्यूशन इनसाइड दिस कंट्री. एंड देयरफॉर द रेवोल्यूशन टर्न्ड टुवर्ड्स अ मास किलिंग, जो गिलोटिन ऐसे छोड़ देते थे ना, वो ब्लेड गिरती थी, दैट्स कॉल्ड द रेन ऑफ टेरर. इन 1794 अगेंस्ट दिस रेन ऑफ टेरर, अब आपको पता नहीं विजुअलाइज करने में प्रॉब्लम होती है, तो आई एम टेलिंग यू इवेंट की रॉबस्पियर केम टू द कन्वेंशन, वो हाउस में आया, एंड ही सेड दैट आई हैव अ लिस्ट ऑफ 20 पीपल हु विल बी एग्जीक्यूटेड टुमारो on these and these charge, and he left. He did not told the name exactly. Everyone thought their name is in the list, and that has united everyone against the Robespierre. उसी शाम को they have planned, they have done a takeover coup, and then Maximilian Robespierre and his junior Saint Just both were executed. गोली मारी है, ये ट्राई टू असैसिनेट हिमसेल्फ, वो सुसाइड, वो मैक्सिमिलियन रॉबस्पियर ट्राई टू सुसाइड, में बच गया शायद, जिंदा है, क्या हुआ. सो दिस इज कॉल्ड रेन ऑफ टेरर. एंड इन 1795 न्यू बाईकैमरल, नॉट यूनिकैमरल, बाईकैमरल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन वाज मेड, एंड द एग्जीक्यूटिव पावर इज नॉट इन द सिंगल मेंबर, इट इज डिवाइडेड टू 5 members called 5 directors. And therefore started the period of directory. And this is reign of terrors 93 to 94, and 94 to 95 is called the white terror, the Thermidorian reaction against the reign of terror. Thermidor is the month, they have changed the name of month, जो हम आगे देखेंगे. And came the directory period. 1799, 18 Brumaire, Napoleon Bonaparte has done the coup. That's why French Revolution is interesting and academic and difficult also. 3 constitution was made, 1, 2, 3. ठीक है. Now what are the achievements? Was French Revolution a success or failure? No one has any idea. In 1968, 170 years after French Revolution, Zhou Enlai Chinese has said it's too early to say. However, it's a mythical story, झूठ है. Zhou Enlai was talking about the French student revolution in 1968. Zhou Enlai का वो statement कई बार आपने सुना होगा, that's why I'm telling. तो show off नहीं है. तो let's talk about the success of French Revolution. तो फर्स्ट क्या मैं ऐसे ही गिनाए देता हूं. व्हाट आर द सक्सेस ऑफ फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन? तो इट गेव सम राइट्स, डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस और डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ राइट्स ऑफ मैन एंड सिटीजन. इट हैज आइडेंटिफाइड सम राइट्स ऑफ इंडिविजुअल्स. फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन हैज रिड्यूस्ड द बर्डन ऑफ पेजेंट्री. फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन हैज एंडेड द फ्यूडलिज्म इन फ्रांस. फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन हैज मेड द फ्रांस सेक्युलर. इतना सेक्युलर कि फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन हैज एंडेड द वीक्स, 10-day वीक कर दिया, सो दैट पीपल शुड फॉरगेट संडे एंड पीपल शुड फॉरगेट व्हेन टू अटेंड द चर्च. फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन इवन चेंज द नेम ऑफ मंथ्स. थर्मीडोर, ब्रूमायर, ये सब मंथ्स के नाम कर दिए, so that you should forget the December and the Christmas and Easter to be celebrated. This is the potency of French Revolution. This is their assertion over secularism. In the region of Toulon, ये है या कोई है, they have even attacked and confiscated the lands of church. French Revolution even captured Pope and took him to France where he died. वो पोप को पकड़ लाए थे, and Pope died. Later the new Pope has done the Concordat with Napoleon Bonaparte. So French Revolution, it has done or has pushed itself towards secularism. French Revolution has adopted metric system. It gave this word the concept of conscription. When your nation need, the army will call you. It has converted the conception of state towards nation. Louis XIV ने कहा था, I am the state, मैं हूं स्टेट, मैं फ्रांस हूं. French Revolution converted itself into a nation. From that possession or territory of king से ये nation आया. ब्रिटेन में ये concept 150 years ago Oliver Cromwell has given the concept Commonwealth. हम एक हैं, king की wealth नहीं है, Commonwealth. France has not only accepted it but made it more famous. Then revolution, French Revolution का एक बड़ा important चीज, you can make it. You must be hearing about liberty, equality, fraternity. From liberty came liberalism. From liberalism, although capitalism is not the product of France, but liberalism, neither these philosophies first time appeared in France. मैं बस ये कह रहा हूं acceptable हुई. Capitalism. What do you mean by capitalism? The hierarchy of this world is not in the house you are born in. Hierarchy is neither your word, not your class कि आप lord हैं कि earl हैं. Hierarchy is your consumption pattern. Audi से आप जा रहे हैं, BMW से जा रहे हैं, you are higher in society. पैदल जा रहे हैं, lower in society. Your phone that has that bitten apple behind it, hierarchy में ऊपर, नीचे. Surname क्या है आपका, किस family से, to hell with that. That is the type of society this capitalism gave. From equality came democracy. Democracy. From fraternity came socialism. So these are the three and then secularism तो obviously. अभी तो फ्रांस की पूरी लड़ाई ही, after the murder of Samuel Paty, the entire struggle of France is this secularism. So these are the events these are the achievements of French Revolution. Failures तो बहुत सारे failure भी हैं. Reign of terror is a failure. The type of anarchy produced is a failure. Its ineffectiveness, आप देखें later Napoleon Bonaparte, there is a question. I also wanted to give that, you may write the question. Napoleon was the child of revolution who ultimately betrayed the revolution. एक revolution का child जिसने ultimately revolution को betray किया. तो you will see Napoleon has brought France back to monarchy 1804. जैसे South American boy in 1801 came to France just to have a look at Napoleon. Napoleon को सिर्फ एक नजर पड़ जाए उसकी. Because Napoleon was considered as the hero of young men who has ended the monarchy and did not made himself king. तो स्पेन आया 1801 में, 1804 में he returned back to his own South American country without even looking at Napoleon because Napoleon has declared himself the emperor. The name of that boy was Simon Bolivar. सुना होगा आपने South American independence. So Napoleon was hailed as the hero of this world because he did not converted himself as the emperor. But ultimately in 1804 Napoleon declared himself emperor. 3-4-5 साल तक नेपोलियन ने अपने आप को एम्परर नहीं डिक्लेयर किया, फर्स्ट कॉन्सुल था, बट लेटर नेपोलियन डिक्लेयर्ड हिमसेल्फ एज एम्परर. सो दिस इज अ फेलियर ऑफ फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन. बात एम्पायर से खत्म हो गई, एम्पायर पे आ गई. एम्परर, यू हैव किल्ड लुई 16 एंड अल्टीमेटली नेपोलियन असेंडेड ऑन द थ्रोन. तो क्या फायदा था? One failure of French Revolution, concordat with Pope. It has ended the secularism. Month's name was changed to January, February. Weeks were back to 7 days. Sunday होने लगा. Position of women, the type of liberty women got. You must have heard about Lord Lytton. इंडिया में जो आए थे, Lord Lytton. His maternal grandmother was one of the first feminists of the world taking part in French Revolution. उन्होंने फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन में पार्ट लिया था. शी वॉज आई थिंक प्रोबेबली मर्डर्ड इन फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन और लेटर. सो द टाइप ऑफ फीमेल इंडिपेंडेंस गिवन टू फीमेल, आप देखें किंग एंड क्वीन, दे वर ब्रॉट फ्रॉम वर्साई 1791 वर्साई टू पेरिस बाय द मॉब ऑफ विमेन. जब सुना होगा आपने, झूठी स्टोरी है कि मैरी एंटोनेट हैज सेड, आस्क्ड हिज मिनिस्टर व्हाई दीस पीपल केम, तो कहा गया कि दीस पीपल केम बिकॉज दे डू नॉट हैव ब्रेड टू ईट. तो मैरी एंटोनेट ने कहा लेट देम ईट केक. ये झूठी स्टोरी है, बहुत पहले की स्टोरी है, बट स्टिल विमेन हैव ब्रॉट दोज पोजीशन ऑफ विमेन वॉज गिवन इंफीरियर स्टेटस, नेपोलियन ने अपने नेपोलियनिक कोड में विमेन को लोअर पोजीशन दी. द फेलियर ऑफ फ्रांस वॉज, इट वॉज टॉकिंग अबाउट इक्वालिटी. अच्छा, एक अचीवमेंट में है कि इट फर्स्ट टॉक्ड अबाउट एंडिंग स्लेवरी. स्लेवरी खत्म करने के बाद सबसे पहले फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन. द हेथियन रेवोल्यूशन वेयर स्लेव्स हैव टेकन ओवर द टेरिटरी ऑफ फ्रांस वाज द फ्रेंच आइडिया रीचिंग हैती. फ्रांस का आइडिया उनकी कॉलोनी में पहुंचा और हैती में स्लेव्स हैव डन द रेवोल्यूशन. 17 फर्स्ट स्लेव रिपब्लिक और सेकंड रिपब्लिक ऑफ दिस वर्ल्ड वाज क्रिएटेड, और सेकंड रिपब्लिक इन वेस्टर्न हेमिस्फीयर वाज क्रिएटेड आफ्टर यूएस इन हैती. पहली ब्लैक रिपब्लिक और सेकंड रिपब्लिक ओवरऑल. लिबर्टी वाज एंडेड बाय फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन, ये भी आइडिया था. हाउएवर, you will see France, which talked of equality under Napoleon, has made Germany and Italy its colony. जो इकोनॉमिक रिकवरी neither French Revolution could do nor Louis could do, that was done by Napoleon because he has taken the money from entire Europe. पूरे यूरोप से उन्होंने पैसे लिए. So these are some failures of French Revolution. पूछा जाता है कि what French Revolution did. If there would have been no French Revolution, तो ये डेमोक्रेसी, सोशलिज्म, इक्वालिटी, लिबर्टी, सेकुलरिज्म, दे वुड हैव कम. इवन विदाउट फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन ये सब होता. बट द ग्रेट अचीवमेंट ऑफ फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन इज दैट इट हैज डन टू मच इन टू लेस टाइम. जिस चीज को होने में 100 years लगते, इट वुड हैव टेकन 100 years टू डू ऑल दीज थिंग्स. दैट वाज डन विद इन 25 years. और 20 years. The French Revolution started in 1789. Some say it ended with king, some say it ended with reign of terror, some say it ended with directory government, some say it ended with consulate 1804, some say it ends with Napoleon. पता नहीं वो कब खत्म हुआ. जनरली जो डेट, एक एड भी अभी उस दिन देख रहा था एक बच्चे का, चाइल्ड्स एड, पता नहीं क्या टीवी सीरीज का था, किस चीज का था, आई डोंट नो, और ऑफ सम प्रोडक्ट. तो एक स्मॉल चाइल्ड, ही वाज शोन वेरी स्टूडियस. तो टीचर पूछता है कि व्हाट इज फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन. तो कहता है फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन इज अ रेवोल्यूशन इन फ्रांस फ्रॉम 1789 to 99. तो इस तरीके से पता लगता है. अभी फवाद चौधरी ने पूछा कि इन नॉन एकेडमिक सेंस फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन इज कंसिडर्ड फ्रॉम 1789 to 99. एकेडमिक सेंस में देयर इज नो डेट. स्टार्ट की भी डेट नहीं है, क्योंकि तो 1787 में असेंबली ऑफ नोटेबल्स हैव स्टार्टेड इट. इतनी डिटेल में मैं इसलिए बता रहा हूं, आई एम टेलिंग यू ऑल दिस इन सो डिटेल बिकॉज वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू डू दिस आफ्टर दिस. अभी तो हम आगे बढ़ते जाएंगे ना. नेक्स्ट क्लास वी विल टेक जर्मन यूनिफिकेशन, इटालियन यूनिफिकेशन, सो ऑन. नाउ लेट्स कम टू नेपोलियनिक पीरियड. योर थर्ड क्वेश्चन. नेपोलियन कॉन्कर्ड द यूरोप एंड चेंज्ड इट फॉर एवर. देखो, बिफोर रिमेंबरिंग दीज थिंग, इन सबको याद करने से पहले you should be clear that we should or we must have some image of it. That's why these stories. जब तक आपके दिल में इमेज नहीं बनेगी, जैसे मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री, you have the image, all you need is data. आपको डाटा चाहिए उसके लिए. You have to remember a lot of things. 1935 एक्ट, तो I'll tell you this one, तो आप कहेंगे अच्छा अच्छा ठीक है सर. DPSP was introduced, आप कहेंगे ठीक है सर. You don't, ऐसा नहीं होगा कि what is 1935 एक्ट, ये चीज क्या है, when it was introduced, why it was introduced, आपको सब पता है. The only thing you have to increase your data. You have to know more provision, you have to know more policies. That's why this discussion. Napoleon conquered the Europe. दो मिनट ब्रेक लेते हैं. ठीक है सर. I guess we are back. Napoleon conquered the Europe and changed it forever. वैसे तो I think I don't need doing it, but this is Austria. Holy Roman Empire. And these are Italian city-states. ठीक है. Now what Napoleon has done. So first, Napoleon started his career in conquering Italy. Then he conquered the Holy Roman Empire, defeated Austria, defeated Prussia, even after Tilsit defeated Russia. Spain, so he has installed his own brother, and he has conquered, obviously, Europe. But the question is that he changed it forever. So how Napoleon has changed Europe? A lot of points or a lot of information can be gathered and can be put in this answer. कोई कमी नहीं है नेपोलियन पे तो he is in the mainstream history. I'm not asking about some South American country, some Central American. We are discussing about Napoleon Bonaparte, who was at the flashlight of the history during these 15 years. तो चेंज इसने क्या किए? तो फर्स्ट थिंग देखें, what I feel is very important of Napoleon, that he has exported nationalism. Now, to say that Napoleon gave nationalism to Italy and Germany is like saying that Lord Dalhousie gave nationalism to India. He didn't want it. It was not due to his policies, but it's due to the reaction of his policies that nationalism in India came. Likewise, it's the reaction of the policy of Napoleon that nationalism in Germany and Italy came. Germany was divided into various states, more than 300. And the domination of France was so total, was so effective, that Germany especially and Italian city-states, they understood, खासकर German, those who always claimed that they are superior. अब देखें, in those days kings all marry in Germany. Even the France is named on a German tribe, Franks. France का नाम तो गॉल होता था. The name of France is Gaul under Roman Empire. वो तो Frank Carolingian dynasty of Charlemagne, which gave it the name France. तो Germans का तो हमेशा claim रहा. Hanover, even today, British Queen is German. Russian भी German थे, मैंने आपको बताया था, German King Peter III. So therefore, Germans always have claimed this. However, France rose up and annihilated the Germany. पूरे German states को annihilate कर दी. And France has totally destroyed Italy, made it its virtual colony. The Spain, which was broken in local junta or small kingdoms, आज भी आप देखें स्पेन में बास्क, Catalonia, then the Castile, Aragon, Portugal. स्पेन तो पूरा आज भी फ्रेगमेंटेड है. स्पेन का ओरिजिनल नेम ही स्पेन किंगडम ऑफ कैस्टिल एंड एरागोन था. इट्स ओनली आफ्टर बर्बन टेक ओवर स्पेन स्टार्टेड बिकमिंग अ किंगडम. आज भी आप देखें फुटबॉल क्लब बार्सिलोना, उनके कभी बैनर्स देखें, दे ऑलवेज सपोर्ट दैट कैटलोनिया इज नॉट स्पेन. सो ऑन दिस Napoleon has exported nationalism by defeating them, by oppressing them, by making them virtual colony. And if you want unity in your family, it will appear best when someone will attack any member of your family. ऐसे तो भाई लड़ते रहते हैं. So therefore he has exported nationalism, not by his enlightenment but by his oppression. Second, he has helped the German unification. Tomorrow we'll discuss about German unification. इसने जर्मन यूनिफिकेशन को हेल्प किया. हाउ ही हेल्प जर्मन यूनिफिकेशन? बाय हिज पॉलिसी ऑफ मीडियटाइजेशन. मीडियटाइजेशन मीन्स होली रोमन एम्पायर. ये बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग एंड कॉम्प्लेक्स है टू अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट इज होली रोमन एम्पायर. होली रोमन एम्पायर इज अ कॉन्ग्लोमरेशन ऑफ जर्मन स्टेट्स. 800 AD में देयर वाज अ फ्रैंक किंग शार्लेमान हु सेव्ड पोप फ्रॉम द लोकल नॉर्मन्स, सॉरी लंबार्ड्स. जो लंबार्ड यहां रहते थे, लंबार्ड, they used to attack Pope. He saved Pope from Lombards, and those were the days Pope was against the Queen Irene of Byzantine Empire. तो 800 AD की बात है. Pope has put throne on the head of Charlemagne and declared him the Holy Roman Emperor. And technically he is an elected king. Elected king होता था. However, after 30 years war, Holy Roman Empire was divided into more than 300 kingdoms. By convention, always the Habsburg Emperor sits over the throne of Holy Roman Empire. By mediatization, Napoleon has reduced their number to 39. मतलब यह है कि if there is 10 kingdoms, Napoleon said, I am subordinating you to the bigger one and I will deal only with this big kingdom. तो हुआ यह कि नंबर वर रिड्यूस. तो he has simplified the map of Germany by mediatizing 39. And therefore later he has paved the way for Bismarck when he unified Germany. It was easy to subordinate 39 rather than subordinating 300. ठीक है. जैसे आप देखें today, if Trump wins or Biden wins, it's said that he will become president because there are only or mainly two party, only नहीं, mainly two party in US. इंडिया में ऐसा नहीं होता. इलेक्शन होगा, फिर जाने क्या होगा, फिर क्या कॉलेज. तो एज यू इंक्रीज द नंबर, कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी इंक्रीजेस. थर्ड, नेपोलियन हैज रीऑर्गेनाइज द वेस्टर्न यूरोप. आप देखें, देयर वाज अ टाइम व्हेन ईस्टर्न यूरोप वाज नॉट ओनली कंसिडर्ड प्रॉस्परस बट वाज आल्सो कंसिडर्ड मोर futuristic, more ahead in its times. Roman Empire went east to Byzantine to take the more prosperous region of Eastern Europe and Egypt, Syria, Lebanon. आज जो सोच के ही बड़ा अजीब लगता है, but still West Europe starts its rise, although a bit earlier under Industrial Revolution. But under Napoleon, the ideas of French Revolution, ending feudalism, they all took west above and east below, और कोल्ड वॉर में और ज्यादा डिफरेंस स्टार्क हो जाएगा. So this difference which we see today between East and West Europe, that started थोड़ा सा पहले हो गया था, but Napoleon gave a good boost to it. All the modern ideas like ending of feudalism, against the slavery, all this was exported from France to other parts of Europe by under Napoleon. ठीक है. और नेपोलियन में फिर दिमाग नेपोलियन ही में चला जाता है. All the strict hierarchies, social hierarchies which were on birth were changed by Napoleon. Then आप सबको आइडिया है कि how Adolf Hitler has made Britain and France so weak that Asian and African independence got its way. If there would have been, that's why World War II is a necessary evil, right? The question. World War II was a necessary evil. Examine. तो ठीक बात है, हमारे लिए तो evil भी है कि नहीं, but necessary तो है ही. Our great leader Subhash Chandra Bose fought on the side of Axis in World War II. तो हम क्यों विलेन माने भैया एक्सिस को? हमारे तो ग्रेट लीडर एक्सिस पावर्स की तरफ से लड़े ही थे. So therefore World War II was necessary for India. Likewise, Napoleonic rule was very visionary and likewise important for South America. आप देखें स्पेन एंड पोर्चुगीज एम्पायर बोथ कोलैप्स्ड. जो डॉम पेड्रो और जोआओ ऑफ स्पेन एंड पुर्तगाल बोथ हैज कोलैप्स्ड. द किंग्स रैन डॉम पेड्रो एंड जोआओ वाज ऑफ पुर्तगाल एंड फर्डिनांड द सेवेंथ ऑफ स्पेन. They flee and they flee to South America. Ferdinand did not flee, sorry, but Portuguese king तो ब्राजील चले गए रहने. They lived in Brazil and they so permanently stayed in Brazil that there was a revolution in Lisbon to bring king back to Portugal because Portugal do not want to become a colony of Brazil. पुर्तगाल ब्राजील की कॉलोनी हो जाता. तो that's the type of permanent effect this Portugal and Spain had, which has decolonized. आप देखेंगे all the Creoles rose against Peninsularis. ये South American history है, which it's your duty to know this. उस पर भी क्वेश्चन ले सकते हैं, but I don't think UPSC in GS will ask a very detailed question in it. But it's your duty to know the South American revolutions. ठीक है? Simon Bolivar, San Martin, all these rose. The Creoles who rose against Peninsularis. So decolonization of South America. Can anyone tell what's the effect on India? So Napoleon has put a continental system on Britain that no one in continent will buy the British goods. All the Europe was stopped from buying British goods. And the company, East India Company, had monopoly in Britain to sell goods in India. So if you want to trade with India से अगर आपको ट्रेड करना है, तो you have to buy the shares of East India Company. You cannot do your independent business. If you want to do business in Europe, तो कर नहीं सकते because Napoleon has said no. In both the cases, the merchants who are now overproducing due to industrial revolution. Industrial revolution was well set. अब ये industrial revolution के goods बिके कहां पे? They could not be sold in Europe, the biggest market. They could not be sold in India. For that, 1813 Act was brought. And this 1813 Act has opened India for the British merchant, ending company monopoly. सिर्फ चाय बिकनी थी, वो भी ब्रिटिश मर्चेंट को बेचनी नहीं है. दैट विल बी ब्रॉट फ्रॉम चाइना. तो ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनी की मोनोपोली हट भी जाती तो भी कोई और तो बेचने नहीं आ रहा था चाय. नो ब्रिटिश मर्चेंट इज एनी हाउ गोइंग टू सेल टी इन इंडिया. सो टेक्निकली ओनली ब्रिटिश ईस्ट इंडिया कंपनीज टी मोनोपोली कंटिन्यूड, बट दैट्स ऑल्सो ऑफ नो यूज. 1833 में वो भी नाम की हटा ली गई बिकॉज टी प्रोडक्शन दे वांटेड टू स्टार्ट इन इंडिया. तो असम में बाद में 1833 के बाद दे हैव स्टार्टेड मेकिंग टी, और उसके जस्ट पहले 1820s में ही टी असम में पैदा करने लगे थे, तो उसकी जरूरत भी नहीं थी. सो दिस 1813 एक्ट, एंड नाउ व्हेन दे वांट टू सेल देयर गुड्स इन इंडिया, हु विल बाय? खरीदेगा कौन? व्हाई इंडियन विल बाय ब्रिटिश गुड्स? फॉर दैट इंग्लिश एजुकेशन. जैसे इफ अ कंपनी वांट टू सेल एवेंजर्स होते हैं ना, वो कैप्टन अमेरिका टाइप, देयर मर्चेंडाइज इन इंडिया, तो पहले इंडियंस को मूवी दिखानी पड़ेगी. फर्स्ट वी विल बी शोन द मूवीज, और वो बड़े हाईलाइट करके मूवीज बनेंगी, एंड देन दे विल स्टार्ट सेलिंग देयर मर्चेंडाइज. तो लाइकवाइज टू सेल द इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन गुड्स इन इंडिया, फर्स्ट इंडिया विल बी गिवन सम एजुकेशन, देन मिशनरीज वर ऑल्सो अलाउड. देखो, पोर्चुगीज लॉस्ट इंडिया, फ्रेंच लॉस्ट इंडिया, डच लॉस्ट इंडिया मेनली बिकॉज दे वर रिलीजियसली फेनेटिक. सच बात तो यही है. द वाइफ ऑफ Duplay, French governor, she has broken 2 temples and filled those 2 temples with human excreta. तो ये सब होते हुए जब इंडियंस देखते थे, हिंदूज एंड मुस्लिम्स alike, they always hated it. That's why British has put ban on their missionaries. 18th सेंचुरी में ब्रिटेन ने अपनी मिशनरीज पे बैन कर दिया. दैट्स व्हाई इंडियंस आल्सो सपोर्टेड और इंडियन आल्सो प्रिफर्ड ब्रिटेन ओवर फ्रांस और डच और पोर्चुगीज. डच पोर्चुगीज तो बहुत ही ज्यादा रिलीजियस फैनेटिक थे. बट नाउ व्हेन द थ्रेट ऑफ राइवल्स वाज गॉन एंड इंडियंस हैड टू बी टॉट और इंडियन हैव टू बी डेवलप द ब्रिटिश टेस्ट, तो एजुकेशन भी अलाउ करी गई 1 लाख रुपीज एंड missionaries was also allowed in India. So in the background of all this is the continental system of Napoleon. वैसे तो यूरोप की बात है पर यह भी मैं बोल गया. Then Napoleon has gave his Napoleonic code. नेपोलियन ने नेपोलियनिक कोड दिया. What this code is? तो इस कोड का मतलब है कि that he gave a रिमाइंड करना. आई अपलोड दैट व्हाट इज एंटायर नेपोलियनिक कोड. तो दिस इज द कोड वेयर फ्यूडलिज्म was ended, all the jobs were open to everyone. Then metric system was adopted, है ना, किलोमीटर, ग्राम, neither mile, pound जैसे US still uses. And a lot of reforms were done. He opened college, polytechnic. So this Napoleonic code which gave equality to men, this Napoleonic code is still the foundation of Swiss law, French law, German law, Spanish law. Even in Britain it was adopted and later it came to Indian constitution. That is called a Napoleonic code. और कुछ किया नेपोलियन ने. वैसे तो I don't want to tell you, but still we can see this, that Napoleon has started the concept in army. Napoleonic reforms are infinite. एक दो बता देता हूं. He gave the concept of this, or with him started the concept of total war. Total war means ऐसा नहीं है two army will come in the isolated field and they will battle it out, बाद में अपने अपने घर चले गए. प्लासी, पानीपत, तराइन, इसमें दो आर्मी आती थी. both armies fight and then they wrestle it out, they disperse. Common people, चाय पी रहा दूर से देख रहा पहाड़ी पे खड़ा होके. It's like a match. Even in 1865 when one of the first battle of Bunker Hill was fought, नहीं Bunker Hill नहीं, battle of Potomac या पता नहीं कौन सा fought था, American Civil War. People came to see it. लोग खाना पीना लेके आते थे वॉर देखने, बैटल देखने. But during the time of Napoleon, the concept of total war appeared. Now it will be fought 24 hours, no perfect battlefield. We can attack your supply lines, we can attack your battle, we can attack your battery, we can attack your citizens, strategic position. 24 घंटे 12 महीने 7 दिन हर जगह ये वॉर लड़ा जाएगा. जैसे इफ गॉड फॉरबिड्स टुडे अमेरिका एंड चाइना गोज टू वॉर, तो ऐसा नहीं होगा कि बोथ विल हैव अ मैच इन पैसिफिक. जैसे बैटल ऑफ मिडवे हुआ था जापान और अमेरिका के बीच में, 5 शिप आएंगे, लड़ेंगे, वो चले जाएंगे. इट्स नॉट लाइक दैट. इट्स टोटल वॉर. फॉर दैट इवन अलाइज आर अटैक्ड. वो अलाइज पे भी अटैक करते हैं. इफ अमेरिका इज और इंडिया इज अमेरिकन अलाई इन अमेरिकन एंड चाइनीज वॉर, इवन इंडिया इज अंडर थ्रेट. कोई भी किसी पे अटैक कर सकता है. फर्स्ट थिंग. सेकेंड थिंग, इन दोज डेज आर्मी वॉज अ लॉन्ग लिस्ट ऑफ पीपल. ये मैं बताना नहीं चाह रहा हूं बट फिर भी, आर्मी ऑफ 5 लाख, तो 5 लाख लोग साथ में चलेंगे. फर्स्ट इन्फेंट्री विल मूव, देन कैवलरी विल मूव, देन आर्टिलरी विल मूव, उसके पीछे कैनन्स होंगी, देन इट विल हैव सप्लाई लाइंस. सो इट्स 30 किलोमीटर लॉन्ग ट्रेन ऑफ पीपल, एंड इफ दे हैव टू क्रॉस वन स्मॉल ब्रिज, तो इट विल टेक 3 days टू क्रॉस देम. इफ आई अटैक द सप्लाईज, अगर मैंने पीछे सप्लाई पर अटैक किया तो इन्फेंट्री, इट विल टेक 6 hours फॉर इन्फेंट्री टू कम, इट विल टेक 2 hours फॉर कैवलरी टू कम. तो इतनी बड़ी आर्मी धीरे धीरे चलती थी. टेक वीक्स फॉर देम टू क्रॉस. नेपोलियन हैज कन्वर्टेड दिस एंटायर आर्मी इनटू द सिस्टम ऑफ कॉर्प्स. इसको कोर कहते हैं. हेड इज लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल, या आजकल मेजर जनरल भी इन्हें हेड करने लगे हैं. तो वन कॉर्प इज an army which will have small infantry, 2000 की infantry होगी, a small part of cavalry, small part of artillery, small parts of cannon and its own supply. It will be around 10,000 men. और इस तरह आर्मी की कॉर्प्स होंगी. And if these corps have to cross or have to reach a city, they will trace their own path. आगे पीछे से जाएंगे. They are self-sufficient units to fight. Now, if you attack a corps, so these can form in ये independent army है which are moving. Now they can surround a large army. If one is attacked, तो जल्दी से pincer movement करके बिखर सकते हैं. It's like Roman legionaries at high scale. So this is what corps system devised by Napoleon Bonaparte and which gave success to his army. इसलिए इसकी army swift होती थी. They used to spread and come together and have a very swift movement. That is corps system. Everyone accepted it today. आज हर army पे corps होती है. Napoleon has ended the concept of legitimacy. Very important. Ended the concept of, पहले माना जाता था कि किंग का मतलब legitimate, God sent. Mughal Empire started its decline in 1707. In 1857, when Mughal Empire was in its absolute decline, खत्म, बिल्कुल लाल किले के अंदर स्लम हो चुका था. When Theo Metcalfe entered to Lal Killa, he has seen that there is a great slum of the relatives of emperor. बिना कपड़ों के टाट का बोरा का पर्दे में रह रहे हैं. But still, when the mutiny took place, the mutinants come to Delhi and declared Bahadur Shah Zafar, a 80-year-old man who has no will, no experience to rule anything. उसको भी अपना लीडर सरबरा, अपना सरदार रहबर घोषित किया. The reason is that they saw the legitimacy in him. Even the Zulfikar Khan, Chin Kilich Khan, Hussain Khan, वो Sayyid brothers, they used to kill one prince and the other and the other and the other and the other, but they never took the throne because the legitimacy was not with them. Napoleon has brutalized these emperors. ऐसा दौड़ा दौड़ा के मारा इन्हें कि after this it was easy for politicians to declare the republics because politicians understood. वैसे तो दिल से सबको कहना आसान होता है, but we always have this sense of legitimacy with us. That's the reason of all the nepotism in world. हम वोट ही डाल, हम कहते किसी और को क्यों कोई नहीं नेपोटिज्म करे, हम वोट ही नहीं जाकर डालते हैं उसे. और नाक दादी जैसी है और कान इसके जैसे हैं. So the reason is legitimacy. After the Napoleonic victories, the legitimacy of various dynasties have declined, and therefore he has hastened their decline. उनका decline तेज हो गया. हो गई भैया नेपोलियन की बात. Fourth question, during the decade of 18, question लिख लें. During the decades of 1830s and 40s, during the decade of 1830s and 40s, the nation and state had found one another. During the decade of 1830s and 40s, nation and state had found one another. The British life was enriched by their meeting. The British life was enriched by their meeting. Elaborate. If you don't know from where this question came, it's a serious matter. This question comes from the Chartist movement in Britain. Chartist movement. What is Chartist movement? So after Industrial Revolution के बाद there appeared the rise of cities. Cities ने एक rise देखी. Due to industrial production, due to factories, a lot of rural to urban migration which we are seeing in our country, it was in Britain. So cities when saw their rise, population rise, population भी बढ़ी. As population increased, the political awareness of people increased. आप देखेंगे in rural areas, वैसे तो इंडिया के रूरल एरिया में पीपल आर वेरी पॉलिटिकली लिटरेट. आप जाओ तो आपको बड़ी बड़ी बातें बताएंगे, ये ऐसे हो गया, वो वैसे हो गया, राजनाथ सिंह आए, योगी आए, ऑल दिस थिंग्स. बट देयर सोशल लाइफ, सोशल टेंशंस आर नॉट सो ग्रेट. दैट्स व्हाई रूरल इंडिया अपने मुद्दों पे वोट करता नहीं है, ऑल्दो दे आर वेरी लिटरेट, बट वोट वो जाति पर ही दे आते हैं, वोट किसी को तो देना ही है। एंड दे आर नॉट वेरी कंसर्न्ड अबाउट, उनको पता है कि रोड वोड कोई बनवाने आता नहीं। रूरल एरियाज टेंशंस आर सो लो दैट दे स्टिल वोट ऑन देयर ओल्डर कास्ट एलिजियंस। दिस टेल्स दे आर नॉन पॉलिटिकल इन नेचर, बिकॉज इफ दे आर पॉलिटिकल तो अपने मुद्दे पे वोट डालेंगे ना। So when people came to cities, urban people are, although they do not discuss politics, but their own life or their own tensions are more guide to their voting pattern. That's why आम आदमी पार्टी can see a rise in Delhi. अभी आप गांव चले जाए, आम आदमी पार्टी कैंडिडेट 5 वोट नहीं मिलेंगे उन्हें। So दिल्ली में लोगों का बिजली पानी दो भाई हमें, that's more important. So they have seen the political awareness, they have seen the type of tensions, social tensions, it emerge out of loneliness and alienation of city life. Urban life बड़ी lonely, बड़ी अकेली होती है। If you in village you tell someone, आप गांव में कभी किसी से कहो कि you feel depressed, तो people will not only laugh on you, आप एक हंसी का पात्र बन जाएंगे। Your name will, नाम ही आपका बदल के डिप्रेस कुछ रख देंगे। The reason is the village life is generally jolly, it's not lonely. So all these matter appeared after industrial revolution in Britain. अब हुआ ये कि people started asking for political reforms. एक 1818 में they went to Peterloo ground to ask the political reforms, तो बंदूक गोली चल गई, many people died. So these tensions were brewing. अभी फिर एक theory of revolution है कि whenever revolution happens, there are some top politicians or top people and then there is ground vigilante, जो मैंने आपको बताया। When revolution succeeds, revolution के समय तो सब साथ होते हैं, all of these are together. After revolution they keep the benefit. revolution के बाद ये एक सेकंड, चलो छोड़ो, after revolution they keep the benefit, they get nothing. जब भी कभी कुछ होता है तो दे आर शोन, इनका नंबर दिखाया जाता है, बट दे आर नॉट गिवन एनीथिंग. आई एम नॉट हियर टू कमेंट ऑन सच थिंग्स, बट एग्जाम्पल कैन बी सीन इन द पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ रिजर्वेशन इन इंडिया. वेन एवर देयर विल बी डिमांड ऑफ रिजर्वेशन, तो इसकी लाइफ डिस्क्राइब करी जाएगी, हिज लाइफ विल बी डिस्क्राइब, कि हाउ ही टॉयल्स इन विलेज, कैसे वो गरीब है और कैसे वो ये है, स्टिल हाउ पीपल डू नॉट ड्रिंक. बट रिजर्वेशन मिलेगा किसको? देयर चाइल्ड. अब यूपीएससी में 800 मार्क्स पे रिजर्वेशन है, मिलेगा इसे रिजर्वेशन. सो लाइकवाइज इन एवरी रेवोल्यूशन, ये रेवोल्यूशन ड्यूरिंग इंडिपेंडेंस हुआ था, लोअर कास्ट रेवोल्यूशन, आफ्टर विच दैट्स वाई कंसेप्ट ऑफ क्रीमी लेयर इज अप्लाइड, इसीलिए कंसेप्ट ऑफ क्रीमी लेयर अप्लाई करी जाती है. सो इन ब्रिटेन ऑल्सो in 1832 there was an act in which the upper class, the middle class got all the rights. They got the voting power. जैसे two types of citizens were identified active, those who are literate or pay tax, या तो tax पे या literate करें, they have the right to vote. Passive citizens, neither they pay tax nor they are literate. कुछ qualifications, if they cannot pass that qualification they could not vote. That's why in India for the first time the division of active and passive citizen was ended in 1952. That's why they are called the first general election, आम चुनाव, क्योंकि ये डिफरेंस नहीं था. Now in 1832 when they are given the rights, these people started collecting signatures. ये सिग्नेचर ले लेते थे, एंड दे यूज्ड टू पिटिशन इन सबको. दे स्टार्ट फर्स्ट पेज यू विल हैव द डिमांड्स, डिमांड लिखी होंगी. लेटर पेजेस देयर विल बी सिग्नेचर्स, 10 लाख, 1 मिलियन सिग्नेचर, 5 मिलियन सिग्नेचर, और जाके बाद में सबमिट कर देंगे. दिस वॉज द चार्टिस्ट मूवमेंट. One of 5 of their demand was, one is yearly elections, no qualification of candidates to stand, regular salary to winning कैंडिडेट जो एमएलए जीत जाए उसको रेगुलर सैलरी मिले। ये कहा जाता था कि वाई सम पुअर पीपल विल कम इनटू पॉलिटिक्स इफ देयर, उनको करप्शन का उतना इंडियन करप्शन का आइडिया नहीं था। एंड देन देयर वाज वन डिमांड दैट इलेक्शन शुड बी सीक्रेट बैलेट, डीलिमिटेशन। अब जैसे एक बरो है ओल्ड ट्रैफर्ड, ओल्ड ट्रैफर्ड वाज अ बरो ऑफ लैंडलॉर्ड, रिच लैंडलॉर्ड, इट सेंड्स 2 members टू पार्लियामेंट, पॉपुलेशन इसकी 5000, and then there is a nearby city, newly developed city of Manchester, its population is 1 million, it is sending 1%. So it means these people, they have more say in the politics of Britain. तो ये कहा गया that according to population the delimitation, that's why even today लोक सभा में और even राज्यसभा the weightage is given to population. चांदनी चौक one of the most crowded city, तो smallest constituency, साइज से नहीं होता है, पॉपुलेशन से होता है। सो दीज आर द डिमांड्स इन चार्टिस्ट मूवमेंट। चार्टिस्ट मूवमेंट को डिस्कस कर रहे हैं। 1848 चार्टिस्ट मूवमेंट हैज एंडेड एंड इट एंडेड इन फेलियर, नन ऑफ द डिमांड्स वर एक्सेप्टेड, बट पीपल हैव स्टॉप्ड देयर डिमांड। लोगों ने खुद ही डिमांड अपनी करनी बंद कर दी। नाउ देयर आर 2 ways the movement can be ended. One is generally we see by crushing it, another is by satisfying the members and making their life so good that they get busy with their lives. आप देखें कॉलेजेस में, स्पेशली इन प्रोफेशनल कॉलेज वेयर द सिस्टम ऑफ प्लेसमेंट इज, इंजीनियरिंग कॉलेजेस, मेडिकल कॉलेजेस, वहां ज्यादा विरोध प्रदर्शन नहीं होते। यू वॉन्ट सी अ लॉट ऑफ रेवोल्यूशंस गोइंग ऑन देयर बिकॉज स्टूडेंट्स आर ऑलवेज स्केयर्ड, यार कुछ हो जाएगा, अभी प्लेसमेंट रुक जाएगा, फिर फालतू का संघर्ष। in the colleges, especially the arts college in India, where the concept of placement is unavailable, permanent revolution, चाइना है वो, दिन भर रेवोल्यूशन ही चलता रहता है, ये आज चाहिए, वो चाहिए, परसों वो चाहिए, उसके बाद वो चाहिए। The reason is that their lives are not so secure. They know कि प्लेसमेंट तो होना नहीं है। Likewise, in these 16 years or in these 20 years of the time, the life of people improved so steadily, इतनी steadily इनकी life improve हुई, that they themselves has gave up all the demands. And these demands were accepted very late. 1872 में secret ballot आया, 1920s में जाके vote for everyone. Yearly elections तो आज भी नहीं हुए, but still population delimitation was done in 1880s. Immediately the Chartist revolution was failure. तो एक question है, Chartist revolution was failure in short term, but success in long term. बाद में सब डिमांड पूरी हो। क्वेश्चन का मतलब है कि वाई चार्टिस्ट मूवमेंट फेल्ड। तो इट फेल्ड दैट स्टेट मींस गवर्नमेंट, नेशन मींस द पीपल। Although state did not accepted the chartist demand of the nations, it made the life of nation better. Poverty programs, जो वेलफेयर स्टेट का कंसेप्ट है, पॉवर्टी प्रोग्राम्स, द ओल्ड एज होम्स, द सोशल सिक्योरिटीज, स्लम डेवलपमेंट, वो जो रैन बसेरा है ना, क्या कहते हैं, विंटर किचन्स, द रिस्ट्रिक्शन ऑन वर्किंग आवर्स 8 hours, वर्क कंडीशंस, जैसे चार्ल्स डिकेंस रोट इन दिस एज, दैट्स व्हाई ही इज सो फेमस। इसी एज में चार्ल्स डिकन ने अपने मेजॉरिटी ऑफ वर्क लिखे एंड ही मेड दिस सो फेमस। और इवन टुडे, अब हमें तो नहीं उतना फील होता है सच बताऊं तो, बट ब्रिटेन में अब हमें तो प्रेमचंद अपना नेटिव लैंग्वेज, अपना नेटिव ऑथर ही ज्यादा इफेक्टिव लगता है। तो द वन हु मस्ट हैव टेस्टेड द ब्रिटिश कल्चर, अब कोई कहे जेन ऑस्टन को पढ़ लो, द ब्राइड एंड प्रेजुडिस, तो मजा तो नहीं आता है, साफ सीधी सी बात। सो work conditions improved, work hour improved, then their slums improved, health care improved. So this was the time when the concept of welfare state was accepted by Britain. तो ब्रिटेन ने वेलफेयर स्टेट को एक्सेप्ट किया, and therefore these social reforms, street paving, lighting, sanitation, all this improved. The quality of life has improved. ये जो population है ना, this high population, कट ऑफ फ्रॉम देयर रूरल एरियाज। अब रूरल एरिया से जब आप कट ऑफ हो जाते हैं तो यू डोंट हैव योर ट्रेडिशनल लॉयल्टीज, यू डोंट हैव योर ट्रेडिशनल फेस्टिवल्स। तो आप देखेंगे द राइज ऑफ आर्ट फॉर्म्स एंड स्पोर्ट्स, आर्ट फॉर्म्स एंड स्पोर्ट्स, सुना होगा आपने, लिवरपूल के वर्कर्स ने लिवरपूल एवर्टन क्लब बनाया, मैनचेस्टर में मैनचेस्टर सिटी, न्यूटन हीथ विच इज मैनचेस्टर यूनाइटेड टुडे. तो लाइकवाइज अ लॉट ऑफ फुटबॉल क्लब्स हैव डेवलप्ड, थिएटर्स, आर्ट्स, ये सब गांव में नहीं होता. इन विलेज लाइफ दीज थिंग्स आर नॉट सो अवेलेबल. अब तो आजकल इंटरनेट और मोबाइल टीवी पहुंचने के बाद तो दे ऑल्सो वॉच दिस, बट विलेजर्स हैव देयर सेपरेट टाइप ऑफ लाइफ. दे जनरली हैव दिस मार्शल, जो ओल्ड तरीका होता है, ठीक है ना. सो दिस इज व्हाट दे, दैट्स व्हाई क्रिकेट विच डेवलप्ड इन द रूरल ब्रिटेन 17th सेंचुरी, क्रिकेट जो है वो 17th 18th सेंचुरी डेवलपमेंट है. दैट्स व्हाई स्टिल इट इज ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ शायर्स, गांव, डर्बी शायर, लैंकशायर, नॉटिंघमशायर, नॉर्थहैम्पटनशायर. Football developed in 19th and 20th century in the urban setting. So it's not based on shire, it's based on city rivalry. Liverpool, Manchester, और ये वो लंदन, Arsenal. The reason is it developed in this industrial revolution. That's why you will see their organization is also better. उनका organizational structure भी superior है, professional है. So this is what this question tells you about. That nation and state was meeting or found each other. Welfare state का concept है. फिफ्थ देखें, compare and contrast socialism and communism. Write a short note on ideologies of Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. Abhi this year they have asked Tagore and Gandhi. Those who could not answer that question have नो नॉलेज नाइदर ऑफ इंडियन हिस्ट्री नॉर ऑफ वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री. अगर आपको ये नहीं बता पा रहे हैं आप, तो आपको कोई नॉलेज नहीं. जैसे मैं आपसे पूछूं कि सैमुअल पैटी वॉज मर्डर्ड इन फ्रांस, विच इंडियन पार्टी साइडेड विद फ्रेंच गवर्नमेंट स्टैंस. इमैनुअल मैक्रोन के स्टैंस को किस पार्टी ने सपोर्ट किया है? कांग्रेस, बीजेपी, एआईएमआईएम. अब आप आंसर दे दो एआईएमआईएम, तो यू हैव जीरो नॉलेज ऑफ इंडियन पॉलिटिक्स, फिर आप अनपढ़ हो. देयर इज नो यूज ऑफ ऑल दिस न्यूज यूज चैनल. सो दिस इज व्हाट विच इनकैप्सुलेट्स द एंटायर डिस्कोर्स. पूरे डिस्कोर्स को इनकैप्सुलेट यही करता है. So this question in trying to encapsulate something which developed in 19th century. तो पहले बात करते हैं कम्युनिज्म और सोशलिज्म से पहले सोशलिज्म की बात कर लेते हैं. We have seen in French Revolution there is a term called fraternity. Fraternity. I hope you all know what is fraternity. Fraternity means भाईचारा, brotherhood. From fraternity came socialism. What is socialism? So socialism, which says that in society, those who can earn, those who have money, has an obligation towards those who cannot. और टेक्निकल थोड़ा अगर इसको करें तो it means that modes of production, machinery, wealth generating parts of society should not be privately owned. Privately owned वो नहीं होना चाहिए. The reason it is that it gives surplus to a certain section. It makes certain section wealthy, others remain poor. So modes of production should be in the hand of public. अनफॉर्चुनेटली कोई पब्लिक तो कंट्रोल कर नहीं सकती है, तो पब्लिक के नाम पे गवर्नमेंट आ जाती है, विच इज अ सॉर्ट ऑफ लाई. और डेमोक्रेसी में गवर्नमेंट क्लेम्स कि हम ही पब्लिक हैं, तो पब्लिक सेक्टर, वी ऑल नो पब्लिक सेक्टर इज लीस्ट पब्लिक, कोई पब्लिक वब्लिक नहीं है. मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन शुड बी पब्लिकली ओन्ड. सोशलिज्म डू नॉट टेल्स अस हाउ दिस विल बी डन, ये नहीं बताते. So socialism is a simple idea. This is socialism. whatever tells that there shall be the public or joint ownership. ये पब्लिक है, गवर्नमेंट है, ज्वाइंट है, वर्कर है, पता नहीं, सब अलग अलग व्यू है इसके. ज्वाइंट ओनरशिप ऑफ मोड्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन. रॉबर्ट ओवन थॉट एक साथ आ जाएंगे ये. इजराइल में कबूत्स, दैट इज द एक्सपेरिमेंट, रूरल एक्सपेरिमेंट, एवरीवन ओन्स एवरीथिंग. और कोऑपरेटिव्स इन इंडिया, दैट इज ऑल्सो अ टाइप ऑफ सोशलिस्ट एक्सपेरिमेंट. तंजानिया में एक एक्सपेरिमेंट हुआ था, विलेज सिस्टम ऑफ उजामा, UJAAMA, उजामा, वो भी एक तरह का सोशलिज्म है. कलेक्टिव्स आर ऑल्सो टाइप ऑफ सोशलिज्म. आप लोग कोऑपरेटिव बैंक चंदा इकट्ठा करके, जो किटी पार्टी होती है लेडीज घरों में, मॉम्स थे, कलेक्ट द मनी, फिर वो कुछ होता है ना किटीज जो करते हैं, दैट्स ऑल्सो टाइप ऑफ सोशलिज्म. तो सोशलिज्म इतनी वेल डिफाइंड आइडियोलॉजी नहीं है. इट इज सिंपली एन आइडिया. नाउ देयर आर वेरियस टाइप्स ऑफ सोशलिज्म. जैसे एडवर्ड बर्नस्टीन, अ डिसाइपल और अ जर्मन who met Marx and Engels. Marx खुद भी वैसे जर्मन थे. And who took part in first and second international. Edward Bernstein, who was exiled from Germany by Bismarck. Bismarck ने इसको जर्मनी से भगाया. He talked about evolutionary socialism. This work will be done evolutionary. धीरे धीरे सब कुछ होगा. फालतू किसी की जान लेने की जरूरत नहीं है. Do it slowly. Evolutionary socialism. There was an individual called Blanc. He said this will not be done gradually. This will be done by a small core group. एक core group आएगा and they will topple everything. Core group. Then there are anarchist first international. Those who say it will be done by everyone. Anarchist कहते हैं सब कोई करेगा इन्हें. Everyone, each and everyone on its own. Everyone will do this revolution and they will own the mode of production. Then there comes Leninism, जिसने थोड़ा मार्क्सिज्म आगे डिस्कस करते हैं. Who said about the professional politicians will do it? लेनिन का कहना था वैनगार्ड एक पार्टी बनेगी, प्रोफेशनल पॉलिटिशियंस वो ये करेंगे, फालतू लोग वोग नहीं कर पाएंगे. देन माओ कम्स, वो बोले पेजेंट करेंगे. सो हाउ दिस विल बी डन? सोशलिज्म एक आइडिया, हाउ इट विल बी डन, तो इट हैज वेरियस स्ट्रीम्स. इन दिस there is a subgroup which is started by Marx, developed by Lenin, ML. This is called communism. Slowly and slowly the communism becomes so famous, especially after USSR, that we start thinking that communism is something different from socialism. ये बहुत ही फनी स्टेटमेंट है. इफ आई आस्क यू व्हाट इज कम्युनिज्म, कम्युनिज्म इज नथिंग बट, अकॉर्डिंग टू मार्क्स, साइंटिफिक सोशलिज्म. साइंटिफिक सोशलिज्म. कम्युनिज्म कुछ अलग से नहीं है, साइंटिफिक. इट्स लाइक कंपेयरिंग कॉन्टिनेंट एंड कंट्री. बट जैसे ब्रिटेन कॉन्टिनेंट से अपने आप को होके भी अलग मानता है, दैट वी आर कॉन्टिनेंटल सिस्टम और कॉन्टिनेंटल फूड, उसी तरह communism also appears somewhat different. I think I have explained what is socialism. Socialism do not tells exactly, but यहां socialism से जो इस क्वेश्चन में पूछा गया है, so that is socialism is theory of social organization achieve equality and fairness. Means of production in socialist private ownership and property can coexist. जैसे हमारा सोशलिज्म था इंडियन नेहरूवियन सोशलिज्म, इसको हम मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमी बोलते हैं. So socialism lacks the condition of destruction of capitalism. It's not very violent. Now let's come to Marx, or let's understand communism in its sense. Then we will see Maoism, Leninism, Marxism. वो तो आसान चीज है. Marx says this Robert Owen वाला concept, businessmen will willfully give. Willfully. जैसे गांधी was also a socialist, and he was the socialist like Robert Owen. Upon his socialism was based on fraternity. Brahmin will call chamar as harijan और उनकी सेवा करेंगे. Landlords will give their own land to the peasants. भूदान मूवमेंट, a Gandhian movement or a started by Gandhian Vinoba Bhave. तो ये भी एक सोशलिज्म है. Marx said all this is rubbish and funny. This will never happen. और आप देख लो ये सारे मूवमेंट कहां सक्सेसफुल होते हैं. According to Marx, the world is not based on fraternity, but on the conflict theory. There is always conflict in society between two groups, haves and have-nots, rich and poor. Marx का कहना है कि thousands of years ago, everything was in abundance, no one needed anything. It was primitive communism, सबको सब कुछ मिल जाता था. Then word came to slave mode of production, like in Sparta you have seen, or in Greek city-states. There were slaves and their masters. Masters used to oppress, slaves were the oppressed. Then from that conflict, उनमें conflict हुआ, slaves, आपने सुना होगा Spartacus uprising and all that. We moved to feudal mode of production, especially when the Germans have taken down the Roman Empire. So feudal mode of production, there were feudal lords and there were serfs. इनका conflict हुआ. From this conflict, these feudal lords, instead of investing land, have invested in production. वो करके it changed to capitalist mode of production. Now the oppressor are capitalist or bourgeoisie. German term जो बुर्ज में रहते हैं, जो बड़े बड़े किलों में रहते हैं. And the proletariat, those who have nothing. तो इस conflict से bourgeois and proletariat हो. Marx says present conflict of capitalism is bourgeois versus proletariat. Haves and have-nots. Proletariat का हिंदी ट्रांसलेशन किया गया है सर्वहारा. The one who has lost everything. Bourgeois को तो bourgeois कह देते हैं. But proletariat is called sarvahara. The one who has lost everything. Nothing to lose but his chains. So from this conflict will appear the classless society. Proletariat will own the mode of production. And this classless society, the bourgeois, will be exterminated, will be killed. And this will be reached by a bloody revolution. एक bloody revolution से ये होगा. Not by fraternity. So if you want to tell what is the difference between conventional socialism, जो लोग समझते हैं, he called this socialism as utopian socialism. ये कहानियों, किस्से कहानियों, परी कथा की बातें. He called his version of socialism as scientific socialism. Something which will be done scientifically. And scientific socialism is nothing but communism, or a start of communism, or at least Marxism. अब now Marx has said this revolution will come. पहले लेनिन का देख लेते हैं, then we will start again from Marxism, Leninism, Maoism. Now Lenin has added some steps to it. Lenin का कहना है scientific socialism will be in 3 stages. First, there will be dictatorship of bourgeois, जो है अभी present condition capital. Then he says there will be a professional politicians who will lead the revolution. Revolution लोग नहीं लाएंगे. Anarchist will not bring it. Anarchist का आपने symbol देखोगे ऐसे hand बना हुआ है यो. This is the symbol of anarchists. और according to Lenin, by hammer and sickle, है ना? So Lenin says it will not be bring by those people. It will be bring by professional politicians. That is called the vanguard party. जो आगे चलती है ना, vanguard party. CPC, Communist Party of China, Bolsheviks, they are the vanguard party, single party. जो भी democracy is inside the party. पार्टी के अंदर डेमोक्रेसी होगी, बट पार्टी विल रूल टोटली. And that will bring the bloody revolution, the revolution which Lenin described as dictatorship of proletariat. जो कि मोमेंट्री है, गलत है, बट है dictatorship of proletariat. Bourgeois will be exterminated. They will own the modes of production and will give the classless society. 3 stage का है. Later Lenin also gave that the revolution itself will take place twice. First, there will be गवर्नमेंट, ये थोड़ा कॉम्प्लेक्स है, पता नहीं आप लोग समझ पाओगे. वी कॉल इट न्यू डील, जो उसने अपनी न्यू डील, सॉरी नॉट न्यू डील, न्यू इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी में किया. मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन विल बी गवर्नमेंट ओन्ड, प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी कैन बी ओन्ड बाय इंडिविजुअल. पहली स्टेज में, टू स्टेज रेवोल्यूशन मींस आई कैन ओन माई शर्ट, मशीन विल बी ओन्ड बाय गवर्नमेंट. लेटर एवरीथिंग विल बी ओन्ड बाय गवर्नमेंट, इवन प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी, आपका ग्लास, शर्ट, स्पेक्स, सिस्टम, एवरीथिंग विल बी ओन्ड बाय गवर्नमेंट. कुछ लोग कहते हैं दिस इज सोशलिज्म एंड दिस इज कम्युनिज्म इन द सेंस ऑफ लेनिन. नहीं समझ में आया मत समझो, कहीं लिखना भी मत, मैं आपको समझा रहा हूं. नाउ अकॉर्डिंग टू लेनिन देयर मस्ट बी वैनगार्ड पार्टी, देयर मस्ट बी 3 स्टेजेस ऑफ रेवोल्यूशन, एंड देयरफॉर दिस ML, मार्क्सिज्म लेनिनिज्म appeared. Marxism Leninism appeared. This Marxism Leninism, which is based on bloody revolution, is called communism. नेहरू ने कहा था ये revolution नहीं होना चाहिए, it should be bloodless, it should be by legislation instead of bloody revolution. Government खुद ही कर दे by its pen, like land reforms in India. तो अगर ये माओ को, मार्क्स को, लेनिन को करवाना होता तो that would have been done by a lot of violence. जैसे kulaks were murdered in Russia, लैंडलॉर्ड्स वर मर्डर्ड इन चाइना. इंडिया में लैंडलॉर्ड्स मर्डर नहीं हुए, चुपचाप कागज पे हो गया जो होना था. सो अकॉर्डिंग टू नेहरू देयर मस्ट बी रेवोल्यूशन बट ब्लडलेस, ब्लड ना बहे उसमें. नाउ लेट्स कम टू व्हाट इज मार्क्सिज्म, लेनिनिज्म एंड माओइज्म. देखो, मार्क्सिज्म इज सिंपली रेवोल्यूशन, जो भी समझाया आपको कि देयर मस्ट बी 2 sides, देयर आर 2 sides, वन इज ऑप्रेस्ड, वन इज ऑप्रेसर. And then there will be a revolution. Revolution आएगा, it will change the world or Europe to the industrial cities to classlessness. जो अभी पीछे डिस्क्राइब किया. He did not told कि how it will be, what it will be. Now 70 years passed, no revolution came. Neo Marxist इसका अलग वो देते हैं, कल्चरल कॉज की छोड़ दे, न्यू मार्क्सिज्म नहीं पढ़ रहा है. 70 years later, the revolution did not. Even today, the communists still ponder why revolution did not came. उसका कारण है सच नहीं बोलना है. लेफ्ट विंग डू नॉट एक्सेप्ट द ट्रूथ. सच बोलते भी नहीं है ना, वो एक्सेप्ट करते हैं. लेट्स नॉट गो देयर. 70 years have passed, the revolution did not came. लेनिन से पूछा गया कि why this revolution did not came, तो लेनिन has a good answer. लेनिन said कि countries like Europe where this revolution had to come, there these bourgeois and proletariat, they are not in conflict, but they together are oppressing a country. ये दोनों मिलकर एक कंट्री को ऑप्रेस कर रहे हैं, and therefore the true oppression or the true capitalism of this world is not between these two classes, but between two country. One is bourgeois country and other is proletariat country, and the drain of wealth is moving from this poor to rich country, and these two are in close collaboration. तो लंदन का बोर्जुआ और प्रोलेटेरिएट एक दूसरे से नहीं लड़ रहे हैं, दोनों मिलकर इंडिया के गरीबों को लूट रहे हैं. एंड देयरफॉर ही सेज दिस इंपीरियलिज्म इज नथिंग बट द हाईएस्ट फॉर्म ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म. जो इंपीरियलिज्म है, कैपिटलिज्म का एक तरीका है. दो 2 classes, बोर्जुआ कंट्री एंड प्रोलेटेरिएट कंट्री. Imperialism is the highest form of capitalism. On this pretext, he took Russia out, or USSR out of the World War I in 1970. He said World War is a imperial war, which is nothing but a capitalist war. And therefore, I am not going to fight it. तो लेनिन का अंतर एक तो ये भी है, और कि he talked about vanguard party, he talked about 2-stage revolution, he talked about 3 steps in revolution, dictatorship and all. But he also visualized, that's why you will understand कि all the freedom fighters like Bhagat Singh, like Ram Manohar Lohia, JP, even Nehru, Bose, they had this sympathy, or they were socialist in their nature. The reason was कि जो भी colonialism से पीड़ित था वो capitalism को भी अपना enemy मानता था due to this theory, and it was not wrong. ठीक है? So that was Leninism. But आप फिर भी देखें, Marxism, Leninism is called communism. USSR named it socialist. कोई भी अपने आप को communist नहीं कहता है. The reason is communism means you accept warfare, you accept bloodshed. तो इसलिए कम्युनिस्ट से कम्युनिस्ट कंट्री भी अपने आप को कहते सोशलिस्ट है, बिकॉज कम्युनिज्म इज अ टाइप ऑफ सोशलिज्म. यू कैन यूज इट टू प्रूव. भाई यूएसएसआर, यूनाइटेड सोशलिस्ट सोवियत रिपब्लिक्स. इवन चाइना टुडे कॉल इटसेल्फ सोशलिस्ट चाइना. ठीक है ना? नेक्स्ट इज नेम कम्युनिस्ट कम्स फ्रॉम कम्यून, फ्रेंच वर्ड कम्यून मतलब लोकल. कम्युनिज्म कहता है कि वी विल डिसेंट्रलाइज द पावर टू अ लेवल की एवरी कम्यून, म्युनिसिपल गांव का के लेवल पे लोग एक दूसरे को वो करें. एंड कम्युनिस्ट नेम कम्स फ्रॉम द थर्ड इंटरनेशनल विच लेनिन हैज नेम्ड कॉमिनटर्न, कम्युनिस्ट इंटरनेशनल. नाउ माओ, इन मार्क्स फिलॉसफी ऑफ मार्क्स, पेजेंट्स आर नॉट फिट टू रिवोल्ट. मार्क्स कहते हैं कि अर्बन लेबर हैज नथिंग विद हिम, peasants have land with them, इसलिए they are the propertied class. As government will try to snatch their property, they will abandon the revolution. वो सर्वहारा नहीं है, वो revolution छोड़ देंगे, they will run away. It was seen in Poland, in Austria in 1848. 1848 में पोलैंड, ऑस्ट्रिया में, as government has threatened to snatch the land, peasants have abandoned the revolution, accepted government's demand. तो मार्क्स ने कहा कि their betrayal proves that they are not fit to revolt. इसीलिए आप देखेंगे मार्क्सिज्म इज अर्बन फेनोमेना, मार्क्सिस्ट पार्टी शहरों में होती है. बट आफ्टर दिस थ्योरी ऑफ लेनिन, माओ हैज टुक इट वन स्टेप अहेड. ही सेज व्हेन देयर इज बॉर्जू एंड प्रोलेटेरिएट कंट्रीज, इन प्रोलेटेरिएट कंट्री, मोतीलाल नेहरू का तो पैसा नहीं लूटा ब्रिटेन ने, उसको तो पैसा दिया. मोतीलाल नेहरू कि तो घर देख लो आप, तो आज आप ना रह पाओ. मोतीलाल नेहरू यूज्ड टू गिव जवाहरलाल नेहरू 10,000 रुपीज पर ईयर इन 1921, 1,000 रुपए लगभग महीने का. एंड यू ट्राई फाइंडिंग द एवरेज इनकम ऑफ इंडियन इन दोज डेज, यू विल बिलीव दैट 1,000 वाज एन अनबिलीवेबल सम. तो लॉयर्स का तो गांधी, नेहरू, पटेल, इनसे तो पैसा नहीं लूटते थे अंग्रेज. नाइदर फ्रॉम टाटा, बिरला और ये जो वाडियाज हैं, इनका भी पैसा नहीं लूटते थे. whom British have oppressed. देखो, I am no fan of this extreme propaganda of Bipin Chandra or nationalism, but no one have this defense that British have looted the peasants of India. इसमें तो कोई डाउट ही नहीं. और इंडियन रेवोल्यूशन भी वही था, दिखाना उनका नाम है, पेजेंट्स का दिखाना है. जब भी हम पढ़ेंगे तो पेजेंट्स. शशि थरूर भी अभी गए थे, तो शशि थरूर लोग अंग्रेज सच बोलते, छोड़ो शशि थरूर, लीव शशि थरूर. सो व्हाट लायर्स. नाउ व्हेनेवर दे हैव टू शो, दे विल शो द कंडीशन ऑफ पेजेंट्स. तुमने बड़ी अच्छी कर ली कंडीशन ऑफ पेजेंट्स, एक कनाल नहीं आगे बनवाई. व्हेनेवर इट कम्स अबाउट पेजेंट्स, तो पेजेंट पढ़ाओ, पेजेंट रिवोल्ट, और ब्रिटिश हैव डन दिस, ब्रिटिश हैव डन दैट. फॉर 80 years यू आर रूलिंग व्हाट वी हैव डन. तो अकॉर्डिंग टू माओ, पेजेंट्स आर द रियल ऑप्रेस्ड, नो वन कैन डिफेंड इट. इसको कोई इंपीरियलिस्ट हिस्टोरियोग्राफर भी मान लेते हैं. Now, according to Mao, if they are the true proletariat of this world, in the world highest form of capitalism, they are the true oppressed. So they are the most fit to revolt. How they can be excluded? उनको exclude कैसे कर सकते हो? They are the most fit to revolt. So the center of any true world socialism starts from the, Mao ने word use किया था, Asiatic peasants. The peasants of Asia. And that revolution will always be bloody, flow from the barrel of the gun. So therefore, Maoism has brought the peasants back to the core of socialist revolution. That's why those in Indian tribal region who are fighting for their land are called Maoist. In cities, those who are fighting for whatever, for workers' right, they are called Marxist. After 1962 war, China and Mao considered villain in India, and therefore in 1967 the peasant movement in India were advised not to take the name Mao. वो लगा फिर आप एंटी नेशनल ही घोषित हो जाओगे, तो instead of calling themselves Maoist, they call themselves from the first village where the peasant movement of 1967 began. I hope all of you have guessed the name by now, the village of Naxalbari. Indian Maoists are called Naxals. The reason is 5 years after 1962 wars, it was advised to them not to name themselves on the enemy of India. तो उन्होंने अपने आप को माओइस्ट की जगह नक्सलिज्म और नक्सलवादी कहा. But the peasant socialist movement or revolutions are called Maoist and the urban are called Marxist. So 19th century, this all has begun. Next class, I hope I will have, or we will take the questions of German revolution, German unification, and we will take the questions of international American Civil War, very interesting, background of World War I. देखते हैं फिर next question, next chapter, and this is the connecting story which I hope you all will connect. Industrial revolution से मैंने question नहीं लिया because it's a very simple phenomena, not that complex. Otherwise ले भी सकते थे उसे. कोई भी डाउट हो तो वैसे तो सर आप बता ही देंगे. I hope it will reach me and I'll try to take it up in next class. ठीक है भाई, thanks for now.